welcome. Welcome. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 67th Eden Fractal meeting. I'm here with my good friends Gnome and Eric and Rosemary and Perry and Jorge. And yep, peace, everybody in the world. Thanks for watching. Thanks all for being here. We have a bit of a smaller meeting than today. We were saying it's the end of summer. Maybe people are busy and also lots of stuff going on, people trying to earn income and so forth. But anyway, we could do one breakout room and we have amazing people here. And if anybody else rolls in, then we can figure it out. But I can share a little presentation. I propose some really exciting topics I'm excited to get into and excited to share and discuss with you all. So if anyone wants to say hello or say a few quick words before I share the presentation, then feel free. If not, then I'll get into this presentation and I'll just be like a quick minute or two just to show some of the topics on the agenda for today. All right, so welcome, EdenFractal.com, of course, where you can learn more about Eden Fractal, a community where we're creating innovative game shows and tools for the benefit of everybody. And you can also learn about what is Eden Fractal and so forth in this welcome guide that needs to be updated soon. And I think we will be updating it soon with some exciting news that we'll share. Of course, you can check out EdenFractal.com/videos to see the recent videos. We're in the 67th meeting, but we're a little bit behind on the episodes. So we just released the 64th episode about changing community keys, and we're releasing the 65th and 67th. As soon as possible. I'm getting a reminder to trigger the election. Sorry, I just hit my microphone as well. So sorry if that was loud. But yeah, you could check out the show notes and the video. Rosemary's been doing an awesome job creating these show notes and videos and beautiful thumbnails and so forth. So you can see all the great stuff that we've been up to for the past 67 weeks on EdenFractal.com/videos and of course YouTube.com/@EdenCreators. For more great shows, you can learn about our work on updating the community account. And I have some updates here. There's always timestamps as well, where you can learn more and you can see topics we propose in agendas and so forth. So you can browse around and please feel free to share with friends and invite people. We're aiming to make it very digestible and easy for people to learn about Eden Fractal. We're going to play agendas after the breakout room. So first we're going to play the respect game. And I don't think we'll do a breakout room today because we have 6 of us. So we'll just stay in this room. And then after that, then we will play agendas where we have some topics on the agenda. Anybody can create topics on the agenda, of course, as always, by making a post on Consortium and voting on it. I made one topic. I don't think anybody else made a topic so far, but I made several topics within a topic. And this is basically playing the topics game that was formerly Tropics, but then Jorge gave some good advice to call it the topics game. So you can learn about it here. It's still at, to learn the rules, it's still at Tropics, edencreators.com/Tropics, but then there's a site over here where it's a Notion site where you can see the topics that I proposed and suggested. So after the breakout rooms, we can get into these real quick, high-level overview. There is agendas and topic overview where I kind of made a new system for how we can organize this with a new topics filter. And then I'll explain more about this afterwards if this is the topic we discuss. And then also Intro to Optimism, which we discussed last week, Optimism RetroPGF round 3, which was announced last week and I think is a big opportunity for the community. A academic research grant from Optimism, some Arbitrum Grants with Gitcoin, and Eden Fractal msig updates and new project. I'll create a Slido poll so we can all vote on it. Or actually, there's just 6 of us too, so maybe a Slido poll is necessary, but we can figure it out either way, basically. And yeah, this is how it worked last time. Not called Tropics anymore, but basically people can vote on it. Everybody here can vote, and we'll just go one person, one vote to see what topics to choose. Or if y'all like, then I can just lead. I kind of put an order that I thought would be good, but happy to go with whatever order you guys want. Or if y'all want to add any topics or have anything else in your mind, then we'd be happy to discuss it as well. All right. Well, thank you for viewing my presentation and listening along. Hope you enjoyed. And if anybody else wants to share any thoughts, or if you want, we could just get straight into the breakout room and just share what we've been doing for Eden Fractal here. What's in everybody's mind? Do you all ready to start, or anything else that you want to share first?
No, not for me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, fire away. I just want to see. I want to see Gnome's background again. I can't tell whether it's an orbit in space or Studio 54 in New York.
It's an orbit. It's actually the orbit that I designed for Space IL to get to the moon.
Okay.
I'll move out of the way so you can see it.
Okay, cool. Looks
And
like
if you're interested, I can send you a video. And on top of that, one of the things I've been doing recently, just getting the finishing touches on it this week, is I can let you download NASA's program for designing orbits and have you design an orbit to Mars.
Wow, looks like Gnome's already starting to share. Keep going, Gnome.
Okay, I'm thinking. Now that I got it to almost work, I'm thinking about what time and what kind of assignment I want to do for people who want to try it. So I looked and I found out that going to Mars is uh, depending on when you do it, it costs a lot more fuel to get there. And the best time to get there, there's two times to get there are in 2033 and 2035. The next time after that, that would be as good, would be somewhere in the 2050s. So we're talking about if we want to go to Mars, we should do it about a decade from now. And there's a few months of a launch window when that advantage happens. And figuring out when the best time during those 2 months is something that I haven't done yet. So I could probably say, hey, everybody can design an orbit to Mars. Let's see who gets the best one. And after we get the best one, we say something else like, well, instead of getting to Mars and having to land on it, which takes a lot of fuel, why don't we get to Phobos, the moon of Mars, and land on it? That takes a lot less fuel. And you can get there 2 years before and land some robots on it that are going to build a space station.
All right.
So this relates to your game that you're creating that you're going to base Fractal on. Is that?
Well, the other thing I was doing this week is I'm playing a lot of Gnomes game, and I'm thinking that instead of creating my own game, I can take this software and embed it in Gnomes game and just be a mod on Gnomes game.
Okay.
So I wouldn't have to build all the stuff for space. We could just use Gnomes game, and which already onboards cryptocurrency and governance, and all that stuff's already built in. Markets.
Is he creating a fractal about that?
Yeah.
We're playing the game now. We've been playing it for the last week. I'm trying to get Eric had trouble joining. I just got Tadas on the game today. And Lisa and Space Wrangler Joe have been playing since the beginning. There's about 40 people playing on there.
And also, I'm sorry to interrupt, Gnome, but also, I saw Rosemary also asked, are the robots going to play Fractal social games? And to Barry's question, yes. And Gnomes game, Dynamics of Hegemony. I'll share my screen as part of like my contribution, what I've been doing as far as researching.
Go ahead and start yours. I've been talking too much, so this is your presentation now.
Oh, it's all good. Thanks, Mo. And if anybody else wants to go first, then feel free, because my presentation is not super ready. But I did want to just jump in and say, just to make it clear, on the website for Dynamics of Hegemony, which is the game that Gnome built, which is really cool and interesting, there is a section about fractals basically cooperating, where all the players will, or at least some of the players will, play in fractal social games. So there are fractals related to Dynamics of Hegemony, which is really exciting.
Okay. I thought that was Gnome's share. I thought you were sharing. But that was.
Oh well, I'm not actually sure. It wasn't totally clear. So Gnome, perhaps if you want to continue, I don't know if this was your contribution for weekly. If you wanted to add it, or
everything I wanted to. So go ahead, Dan.
Okay.
Go ahead and choose your part.
Sounds good. Well, thanks for sharing, Noam, and thanks for all your work experimenting with the Dynamics of Hegemony game. And yeah, I can go next, but also if anybody else would like to go next too, I'm also kind of in the midst of bringing my slides up too, so I can do a screen share. So I can go now, but it might be a bit rushed. If Eric or Rosemary or Jorge or Perry, you want to go first, then feel free.
Sure, I'll go. So, the biggest thing for me is how do we move this into the real world? And in order to do that, I have to work with the real world. In doing that, I have to get permission. So this week, finally, I got my dissertation prospectus approved. It's 47 pages of joy. If you want to see it, it will, but it has it's interesting how much non-fractal stuff I have to use to convince people to let me do a fractal. because nobody cares about fractals. So it's 47 pages and hundreds of references to say, here's why you need one in the first place, and here's why we would do that. So if anybody's interested, I'll share that with you.
Definitely, I'm definitely interested. I'm definitely interested.
Because that's been a big part of life, to just say, here's why you would need something, and here's how we would do it, and here's why it would work, and those kind of things. Then the other thing is, how do we test this out in the virtual world? Things like, so I've been trying to play the game to see how we could move this stuff. That's my reason for playing the game, is saying, how could we add Fractal into the game? Because there are 4 factions, and there's more. If you add more people to the game, that have to coordinate to each other, and then you have to coordinate with the other factions. So I had lots of discussions of what that would be and how would you frame that, what context would you put it in. So while I haven't been so successful at playing the game, I had a tough time still going. It won't let me, it's just giving me error messages. And then the other thing is, I view the Interplanetary Unconference as a real focal point for us. So because I'm planning the Fractal Palooza, which is the fractals getting together to talk fractal, governance, an open mic night. By the way, I posted the YouTube video on settings on the Center for Governance on how to do that. That's where you sing and it doesn't get rid of your voice, like what happened to Rosemary. So I found the YouTube video to do that. So that's posted. I also, in order for us to make content, a lot of that is AI starting to play a big role. So we did our workshop. So I posted the workshop everywhere, but I also promoted that outside of Fractal and Alien Worlds communities to get more people. So got pretty good feedback on that. And then we've been just building out the event space as a place for us to get virtually and talk about fractals in the Center for Governance. And the other thing we put in is a proposal office in the Center for Governance. So I need to see if I can get that funded so people can just go to Calendly or something and set up an appointment with somebody who understands proposals to talk about how you submit proposals. And so, for example, if they want to talk about optimism, maybe Dan would be willing. We can get that funded to set some hours a week to talk to people. And if, any of those various vehicles, somebody who knows them all or part of it. So I've been working on how to set that up. And so Lisa and I had a pretty good discussion on how we would do that. And so the first thing is to create an office in there. So we did that. So there you go. Dan, you must be ready now. I was talking way too much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Eric. And not talking too much at all. That's all awesome. I'm very glad to hear it and stoked for all your progress. So please don't feel free, or no, please feel free to share as much as you like when you have all that great stuff going on. And then, yeah, also just to read out some of the chats for people who aren't here but watching. I saw Jorge wrote "Bravo, Eric" in all capital letters. So it's not just me who's loving it too. And then, well, there's some questions about Gnome helping out with the fractal structure and helping out, or just participating in the game rather, with Rosemary and Gnome too. So I want to throw those out there. I could go. I'm still kind of getting prepared a little bit. So I could go ahead right now. But Rosemary, Perry, or Jorge, if you do want to go first, then you're very welcome to do so. Does anybody want to go next?
I can go next. Mine is short. It's because it's just, I'm essentially doing the same thing each week. This last week's that I can talk about. That's the problem. I've been continuing to attend the EdenDAO and EOS meetings, and I'm learning. I'm trying to contribute. I'm trying to give them my feedback on the different directions, the different pivots We've now pivoted a few times in the last two terms. The current pivot is towards an ambassador program. Apparently, it's not exactly clear what they're going to ambassador. And this isn't peace; these are air quotes. Very different. Very different. What they're going to actually promote. So I find it fascinating that Eden began as a form of governance to distribute funds as a worker proposal system, and now it's being turned into basically a marketing organization. So I find that fascinating, yet a little depressing. I don't think that's the highest and best use of the technology or this group, this window of opportunity, this community of people. I don't really think that's the best direction. But I'm still, excuse me, I'm still following along and trying to help them shape it in the most decentralized fashion, whatever that means in the end. But most of all, I'm learning. I'm trying to learn on many fronts. And that learning is being manifested in what I'm building, what I'm trying to create, which is going to be an extension of DNews. And so really that's what I'm doing. I'm really taking these last two terms, fairly consistent attendance, paying attention, learning, stressing the system, stressing their own system, stressing their moderation system. I mean, let's be honest. That's what I've been doing. I've been stressing their moderation system. And I've been doing it with the intention of learning. How do they respond? What happens when the moderation system is stressed? What happens when you're somebody who is doing the stressing? I'm not doing it out of malice. I'm genuinely expressing my opinions, but it's being interpreted as stress. And so what is that dynamic? And how does that dynamic operate inside of a decentralized organization? What are the solutions? And I think they're coming up with solutions. So it's this interesting petri dish. It's this interesting laboratory of what happens when people in the DAO are expressing something that is different and opposed to the people in power. What are those dynamics? And what is the answer to that? What is the answer? If decentralization and autonomy are your objectives, what is the answer? How do you maintain those attributes of an organization? And I've come to a conclusion. I'm not going to share it here, but like so many other things, it's simple. It seems simple. The implementation isn't necessarily simple, but the idea is really quite simple. And in the future, I'm going to, of course, announce that in some way, hopefully sooner than later. But I'm not going to say exactly when. But that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm learning. I'm fascinated by this. I think this is going to occupy a huge part of all of our lives going forward. Not in the immediate future, but I would say in the years forward, we're going to be spending more times hopefully we'll be spending more times in DAOs as a society. I think we can all see that's where it's going. And I'm trying to get ahead of that and trying to contribute to that. So that's it. That's what I'm doing. Just a lot of nothing. Nothing that I can talk about. Okay, who's next? In my left-hand corner is Dan, but I'm going to give you the option to pass because you are busy.
Well, thank you, Perry. And I appreciate that. I would not call what you're doing nothing. I think it's awesome, and that was a great explanation too. So thank you very much, Perry, for all the great things you're doing. Really appreciate it. I saw Jorge wrote that he's today on silent fasting, so he won't be talking today. Well, thank you for letting us know, Jorge, and I hope that you enjoy your day silent fasting. I saw Rosemary also send a nice message, hoping you feel good and fasting's going well and you feel recharged. So I agree with that. Thanks for joining and listening and being here with us, and looking forward to speaking with you. I suppose next week, if that's when your silent fast will be done. But Jorge's got lots of respect for me just for being here and listening. I'm sure he's doing lots of great things as well, but I can go first in that case. And then if Jorge wants to, I don't know, explain it by sharing a link or anything like that, then I don't know if that goes with the silent fasting, but feel free to do that after me, I suppose. So yeah, I suppose I'll go now. I am pretty much ready to go. Yeah, I'm ready to go. All right. So main thing that I've been doing, well, I don't really know where to start. I pulled up a couple different windows here. Maybe I'll start on maybe I'll start because we were talking about Dynamics of Hegemony before. This is just a cool, like, very fun thing that's really fun and exciting to start with, and we were talking about before. So maybe I'll start with that, and then I'll get into some of the other stuff. I haven't been spending the most amount of time on Dynamics of Hegemony. Most of my time has been spent with Eden Fractal and Optimism Fractal, as well as building infrastructure to help grow these and help promote these with Eden creators and so forth. But first, I'll start off because this is like a really fun new game that we were talking about. We were talking for like a half hour before we started recording, maybe a bit longer, and Gnome was sharing a bunch of great ideas during his presentation, as well as Eric and everything like that. So yeah, I'll just share my screen a little bit just to show you what we were talking about. Dynamics of Hegemony.com. This is created by Gnome, who joined several different Eden Fractal meetings and has said very great things about Eden Fractal that we'd like to curate at some point to help promote and get the word out more. But yeah, it's a really cool new game. It's kind of like Civilization, which is a game that I used to play a lot as I was a kid, and it's like really well done. I recommend people check it out. There's also videos. I've watched like 4 or 5 of the videos. I think 4 of the videos so far. And I just like read everything on the site, and I also started curating a little bit of it too, because I think, I mean, it's using Web3, it's using the UX network and the Antelope software, and there's a section over here about joining strategic squad mini games, where as a part of your faction, you'll collaborate to select leaders and establish squad rankings and much more, which is like a really exciting development for fractals in general. That fractals are being incorporated to this kind of game, or games in general, like this kind of broader game though. So yeah, I did a lot of research here. I clicked through the wiki and the labs, and then I also checked out the YouTube videos too, where Gnome is sharing how the games work. For some reason, it's not showing up. There we go. I just clicked randomly and it found it there. But there's a playlist with like the game mechanics where you can learn how to play. So I watched 4 or 5 of these so far, as I said. And then I started curating on Notion, which will eventually go to EdenCreators.com, learning more about this. I talked about this with Vlad and Tadas this weekend too, as well as several other people. And so I started to basically curate. So yeah, not my biggest contribution, but mostly for Gnome and Noam and everybody else who's been actually playing it, but I'm planning to play it, but I'm starting to curate it. The main thing that I've been working on this week, well, several different things. So for one thing, I've been doing a lot of research into optimism. I introduced retroactive public goods funding and optimism in last week's Eden Fractal meeting, and Jorge sent a message asking for the proposal that I had shared last week, and I finally shared that this morning, even though it took me like several days to get it through, because I was trying to curate all these different things at once and trying to like kind of juggle communicating with people who like communicating with the Optimism Council, who I applied to, trying to communicate with the Fractally team too. I have this open as a tab too, because I've been writing messages to try to figure out the future of the Fractally brand. Because as far as I'm aware, Fractally is turning into sync and they're bringing down the Fractally site, I think. But I want to see if there's any parts of this that can be salvaged, because there's a bunch of amazing parts of this website. I might be speculating. Maybe they're going to keep the site up or something. But I've been meaning to reach out. I reached out to James Mart last week about the Eden Fractal msig, which is another thing I've been working on a lot this week. And so I've been working on like figuring out the best way to reach out and ask several questions about the Fractally site and also their advice for the Optimism Fractal, because I think they'll be really excited about this optimism development. I have a site, I have this page open where I showed last week about optimism.io/RetroPGF, where you can learn about retroactive public goods funding. And I've been participating. I joined a call along with Rosemary yesterday, learning about the upcoming season, and I put together some stuff on the topics of the agenda. So I'm happy to share that with you all soon. I also started building the brand for Optimism Fractal too. So I created a Twitter account called it Optimism Fractal, just kind of a draft stuff with some draft art that I made. But it goes along with the idea of the sunny, which is like the smiling sun, and the sunflower, which is kind of metaphorical for like retroactive public goods funding, how it's like you have the sunflower, which is like providing energy for people. It's a really fascinating concept. So that didn't take me a huge amount of time to develop the brand, but I'm excited about it. And it kind of will go to show or kind of demonstrate some of the other stuff. There's that optimism.io, of course, which I demonstrated last week, or I shared last week. And then, yeah, before I get into like the main thing, which I think has the most things I've contributed, of course, I just did the transactions to enable us like to do the elections on chain and stuff like that, which is a helpful thing that needs to be done each week. So we have to vote. And then, yeah, I suppose I could just kind of wing it from here as far as what I've been doing, because all of these topics kind of summarize a lot of stuff I've been doing, and we can get into this in more detail afterwards, but I'll just provide like a very high level overview in the next like 2 minutes or so during my 5-minute total presentation here in the remaining minute or two. So yeah, basically I put together, I guess, like 8 topics that we can discuss today. We'll see how many we get to or how much we want to go into. We could just touch on them for a couple minutes, or we can get into a lot of them more deeply. And I think it'll be really helpful for the whole community. Lots of things to discuss. So the first 2 topics are kind of like just more so just like admin, or like just meta, like understanding how we can use this, like kind of evolving this topics game and just providing a little bit of context here. As I said in past weeks, I can invite people to Notion. I know Perry asked to be invited, so Perry's here, and Perry can add topics if you want. Anybody else, if you want me to add topics or anything like that. So just kind of introductory information. There's also, over the past couple of weeks, I realized I could create a new topics filter to just organize these better. So we just have the past week, but that stuff's kind of a little bit boring compared to the other stuff. It's still really exciting though, I think, because it helps us cooperate and will help other communities cooperate for topic curation in a decentralized community in the future, which is really important. The main things I've been doing, working on Optimism, because Gnome had also requested right before he left last week, for me to share links in the chat, and I shared optimism.io, and that was kind of a place where people could follow up and explore, and I kind of gave a walk through the site last week, but I also want to share links, and sorry, Noam, I didn't get to share that in the actual chat, but it's here, and you can check it out. It's been shared in the chat now, and I'll share it more directly in the chat. This took a little while because I was writing and trying to figure out how to introduce it both to people who are at the meeting as well as people who might just be reading along, but there's a bunch of links here, as well as a little intro that I wrote here, which I can get more into detail, and then I wrote an introduction to RetroPGF. I think you were just raising your hand to touch something else. I don't think you were aiming to say something there, but I just got saw it there. I was also working with AI a lot too, like draft summaries. So this is just like a lot of AI drafted summaries. I've been working and figuring out the best ways to use AI to do this better. And then I've also been working on an Optimism article as well at edencreators.com/optimism, which is coming along, but it's still a work in progress. It's curating a lot of videos, and there's a lot of playlists I've been building together too, so people can learn about optimism in more detail. And then I'm probably just about my 5 minutes, so I'll just be real quick. I attended the call learning about RetroPGF round 3, and I found out the dates that we can learn about this, and I've been coordinating with Vlad and Tadas to build the tools, and I started to curate more about RetroPGF. There's a academic research grant that I discovered that I want to share, particularly with Eric and Jorge, but also with anybody who might be interested in this. And there's a link here too, where it has more details. There's not much time to apply, so it might be too late. But this is like Optimism is looking for people to do research for how we can improve governance or improve cooperation or improve optimism in general. So we can dive into that topic more. I've also been just exploring the whole Ethereum ecosystem and learning about different tools. Lots of stuff in the background I haven't shared, but once we get the tools ready for EVM, lots of tools we can use. There's also a funding round on Gitcoin that I figure we can help fund community members. And I've been working a lot on Eden Fractal msig updates. I tried doing that in the msig.app, and I spoke with Vlad about this, and I wrote Vlad a message. He volunteered to help. And there's like kind of a summary of issues that I had, technical issues where I was working on trying to get this thing to work, but it still hasn't quite worked yet. So just documenting all that. And then also I'm documenting troubleshooting to Telegram, to Eden Fractalgram rather, and then considering how to promote it more. So lots of other stuff. Oh, and one more thing I can share too is I've been working with Rosemary. She might share it as well, but I think I lost the window actually. So maybe I won't share, but I've been working a lot with Rosemary on just trying to improve the branding or improve like the marketing outreach and stuff like that, working on like thumbnails and show notes and stuff like that. But anyway, I suppose I can pass it on to Rosemary now.
Thanks. Well, okay. I can, I guess, share my screen.
Sounds good.
Okay. Great. Thanks for all the great updates, by the way. It sounds very impressive and great work overall. So what I've been doing this past week, I edited the latest, the EF66 video, and now it's timestamped. And I'm showing, sorry, I forgot that I was started sharing my screen. I also posted EF64, and now I've been mostly working on the show notes and getting a grip on the best structure and sort of best way to use AI to help me with the show notes. And basically, this is what it looks like. I've, for example, this for 64, and been working on past show notes, make sure that all the past recent episodes have show notes included in them, so it's easier to kind of go about the episode, and it has links to timestamps and kind of a summary on what the main discussion was about, as well as I thought about creating a new section about the respect game recap, where people or participants have provided updates on during the breakout rooms, and just kind of again leading to timestamps if people want to explore that. And yes, I worked on the show notes here. I'm at the moment the video is edited for 65. I'm currently working on the show notes there, almost done. So also, I know Dan mentioned about that we've been kind of working on thumbnails more, and I found a new way to stop screen sharing. Found a new way, and I'm just exploring ways to get the workflow of creating thumbnails alongside the YouTube titles and description. Be more concise than in one place. So I think a good method is to have a few of the recent videos in one place with their thumbnails and alongside the YouTube description, so that it tells a good story when someone browses through the videos. And as well, show notes should be kind of optimized for that reason as well. So I figured out kind of this new way to do thumbnails, and it makes more sense that way, and it's just I think time efficient to do it in that sense. And also I worked a bit on the Optimism grant. We had to review the milestones and making sure that they look good, and I worked alongside Dan for that. And I've been brainstorming with Dan new ways to bring more life to the website, to Eden creators. And for example, updating the About page, as well as the Gardens page and Tools page, and updating it. Some pages need updating on the kind of the text that's displayed alongside pictures. Some pages maybe would benefit from a different view on the like a template that would serve it and present the information a better way. For example, the episodes, or just to bring out like the best parts of the website and make it easier for anyone to understand what this is about, as well as for example, including some feedback as testimonials from people who join the meetings. For example, I could take that from the speeches game that we played during the anniversary, and kind of putting that into more of on a display position on the website, because that's good, so people can see that these are real people, people who come here, and that and see what they think about it, really. And yeah, I have an idea to start working on that, and I'll present it as soon as it's ready.
That sounds great. Thank you, Rosemary. Did you want to say something there, Perry?
I was just gonna say there's only one person left. And if no, but he's not speaking. Oh my God. Oh my God. He is speaking. He's not speaking. He's
He
got
just
one.
shared a chat.
He's waiting for to choose food. Sounds like.
Perhaps would you like me to read the chat out, Jorge? So okay, sounds good. So well, first I'll just say to Rosemary, it's been a pleasure working, and there's a bunch of other cool stuff that she's got going, like for tweets and all sorts of other stuff too, that I'm really excited about. So thank you for that. And then Jorge just wrote a message in the chat that I'll share on, or I'll speak about it on Jorge's behalf. So from Jorge, regarding my contributions to the fractal democracy process, I participated in the Alien Worlds Fractal, or AW Fractal, and in the tech working group of the Eden community. In the later group, I managed to get some payment to Vlad and myself for the proposal we presented to bring the Fractally protocol to Eden. We received 300 EOS each from one of the CDs. Hopefully this will help Vlad further his implementation of the new app. Excellent. Thank you very much, Jorge. That's awesome to raise funding for both yourself and for Vlad to help for the implementation. And I really appreciate it.
I've got a question for Jorge. If he can answer with sign language. I don't know. I'm not sure what the rules of the silence fast are. Are you now the lead of the tech group? Yes or no? Are you the lead of the tech group? Are you allowed to use hand signals in the fast?
He said he doesn't know yet. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know yet. Okay. All right. All right. Can I ask about the fast? Is it a religious fast? No asking. Okay. All right.
Well, I've also been, he said that's another point in the chat. Okay, well, yeah, I've also been following along with, or at least I wasn't able to make the tech call this week, but I was there last week as well. And yeah, we talked about that already last week, but I'm glad that you're able to get some support from the chief delegates. And I thought I read the proposal you guys shared, and I thought it was really good. So much respect for that. And oh, you proposed yourself as leader of the tech work group to pass Dwayne. Yeah, Dwayne hasn't been there lately. I haven't seen Dwayne lately, so I guess he's been, I think somebody said he was traveling or he's busy or something, but hopefully he's doing well.
He's been on travel. That's
okay.
why he's not. He signed up for Dynamics of Hegemony. It never showed up because he's on travel.
Okay. Okay. Well, thanks for the update, Gnome. And I hope that Dwayne, wherever he is enjoying his travels. And thank you, Jorge, for all the great work. I really appreciate it. And does anybody have any questions or comments? Oh, Rosemary said she's going to start a Fractalgram group. Thank you, Rosemary.
Well, first I wanted to let Perry know that I put some links to the orbit on live chat if you want to look at them.
In Telegram. Okay.
Yeah, in Telegram.
Yes.
Things on Zoom chat just disappear. And Dan, when I was listening to your presentation, I kept thinking, well, all of that stuff about Dynamics of Hegemony, and it is a social game that we could build a fractal on, and we need people to do this, and the two people we probably need the most, Dan and Eric, are not showing up.
Well, I definitely want to show up. As I said, I've been super busy with Optimism and Eden Fractal and everything like that.
One thing. I think I spent about 10 minutes with Tadas today answering his questions, and that was enough to get him started. And then all he needs to do from now on is log in twice a day and use 5 minutes to spend his energy, and he's doing his part for the faction. So if you want 10 minutes for me to show you how to do that, just get in touch. And I think you have to sign
Yeah.
up with Lisa first, but
Okay, that'd be great.
It's not too late.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, thank you, Noam. I appreciate that a lot, and I think I'll take you up on that this week. That'd be awesome. Lisa sent me a message, and I have a Google form to sign up. So I suppose first I'll respond to that Google form, and then I'll get in touch with you afterwards.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot,
Joe.
Noam. And yeah, welcome, Joe. Thanks for joining. Hope you're doing well.
Hi, thanks, guys.
You're
I was
welcome.
getting murdered last night at 3 in the morning after a really
Now,
long night.
you didn't actually get killed. I'm glad you got away, and I think that those idiots actually helped your team better than they helped themselves.
Are you
Oh
talking
gosh,
about...
yeah. So I'm so sorry. I apologize. That was part of my being not on time, you guys. I'm very sorry.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you're going to be heading to the Titanium mountain next. It's a good opportunity for your team.
Are you talking about Dynamics of Hegemony right now? I'm just...
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah, I was like, I'm just trying to be present for this meeting here. I'm sorry, man.
Well, I talked about it a bit, and then Dan talked about it a lot, even though he's not been playing the game. He's just been curating stuff about it without actually being there.
Okay.
So considering all the talk about Dynamics of Hegemony that's already been going on here without you, you're the one who actually went through. He had one of the most exciting things that happened in the first war action Joe was involved in. He was the target of an unprovoked attack by two people on my team.
Oh snap! Things getting heated in the metaverse.
Yeah, I was like, I could run away or trust that they'll be nice and just continue to do my thing, and we might trade and yada yada. And so I mined, and they shot, and it was not the wisest decision for me.
It backfired. You weren't hurt, but one of them was.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, there you go.
So, okay, well, good to hear all the action. And Joe, I hope you can make it out alive. I don't know exactly how it works, but I wish the best for you and Gnome's empire or faction or whatever it is. I'm looking forward to learning so I can better understand it. But also, just to provide some introduction, Joe, too. So there's less people who joined today, so we just have one kind of breakout room thing where we're here, and all six of us just shared like our contributions basically and what we did. And then Rosemary was just opening up Fractalgram. So we're at a stage where if anybody had any questions for anybody or comments about their contributions, then feel free to ask. And also, Joe, I mean, there's only 6 people allowed like in the Fractalgram system. I don't know.
No, this worked out perfect. I and will come here and listen and support, and yeah, so it worked out perfect.
Okay, cool. Well, sounds good. Thank you very much, Joe, for listening and supporting us. Really appreciate that. And yeah, if you did want to share
67 or 66, both of them are.
This is 67
or 67, right? Because I see both.
This is 67. Rosemary just emptied it or started it. It's called EF67 Room 1. That's the Telegram chat. Maybe she could share the link in the.
The 66 one popped up too.
Okay. So I don't know if we want to just do straight into the Fractalgram and start voting, or if anybody else has any other questions. I do see Rosemary just created. I guess Rosemary made an error and typed in EF66 first, because I see both of them just started actually. Okay, cool. So I see people are here in EF67, Room 1. I'll also post the Notion page too. Joe, before I introduce some topics on the Notion page, so after we finish with the...
Jorge, you still need to join the EF67 on Telegram, on Fractalgram.
Yeah. yeah. Perry and Jorge are not yet in the Telegram Fractalgram group, and yeah, while Perry and Jorge joined there, I was just also introducing to Joe. So we have some topics that I've posted on the agenda. I'm going to share those in the Telegram group as well as Jorge requested. We have some cool topics to discuss. I don't know if like we can kind of see whatever everyone wants to do. I'd be curious if Joe wants to share, even though Joe says perfect, and I think he expressed that he doesn't necessarily need to be in the rankings. I know Joe's been up to a lot of exciting Fractal stuff. One thing I forgot to mention is I hosted the Fractalien Worlds meeting on Monday, and then at the end I was saying how I couldn't really keep on volunteering to host it, but Joe volunteered to host the Alien Worlds Fractalien Worlds meeting on next Monday. So I appreciate Joe for doing that. And I think Joe's also been working on some really exciting stuff with an upland kind of fractal. I saw some images too. So I don't know. I see Eric clapping. Maybe before we get into voting in Fractalgram, if everybody's cool with it, maybe Joe can just share what he's been up to first, if Joe, you want to.
Yeah, sure. I got a meeting tomorrow with a second meeting with a new fractal, and they are EOS people without knowing they're EOS people. Most of them, they're uplanders that game's all built and runs on EOS, but most of the players don't really realize it. Their wallets are custodial and they just don't know, right? But so I didn't want to jump right in and get them jumping and voting in Fractalgram and all that stuff, because I'm still trying to learn to master all this stuff. So we had a meeting, took a vote, and the way we recorded everything on chain was I made an NFT with the meeting notes and the stuff that we voted on and the date and the attendees. And then I added some artwork to it. And then the way that we came to consensus was if you agreed, you minted the thing. So it's a very simple and primitive way for now, but it's like baby steps. Once we get them to do that, then it's like, okay, now you can vote with this other thing. And speaking of that, I wanted to just thank Rosemary for showing me that one time on the Fractalgram, and then I had reached out to her after the Alien Worlds one when me and Dan had talked, or the group had talked, and I volunteered. I was like, oh, I better know how to do that. So I reached out to her, and she was gonna help me, even though she already showed us once, and I should have it memorized. So I just wanted to give her extra clout too for doing that, and yeah, and then a bunch of people here have been helpful to me, Eric and Dan and Jorge and Jerry. I don't get to see that much, and of course Gnome tried to save my life last night. So there's a lot of people here I'm grateful for, so I just want to share that too.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Joe. Glad you've been collaborating. Thanks
And
to
don't forget that Joe hosted the AI music video workshop. He did that. And he's expanding the spatial implementation of the Center for Governance so that we can have Eden meetings there.
super cool. Thanks, Eric, for adding on to that and helping explain all the great work that Joe's been doing, and also hosting, or I should say organizing, the AI workshop, and looking forward to the Eden meetings at the Center for Governance at the beautiful building behind you. And yeah, thanks so much, Joe. That's super exciting what you're doing with Upland and Alien Worlds and everything like that. So, and I'm glad that there's lots of collaboration going on in the community. So thank you very much for sharing, and
I
need more.
I need the Eden meeting conference room background so I can put that up so we can be inside that building next. So that's important.
I'm looking forward to seeing that room. The Lisa's Coffee Shop on the top floor is
we can meet there.
It's a wonderful venue, and I imagine there's more nice rooms in there.
We're also doing a garden meeting on top of the building.
Okay, that sounds good. I just got a message from Rosemary, if I can set up the room and said please, because Rosemary's having issues. I was also having issues with Fractogram on Monday as well, and I messaged Tadas about it, so I could try setting it up, or we could just do the traditional like old school system, or maybe I could try something, I'm also working on sharing that message with
We can't use old
Jorge.
school system because Jorge isn't talking.
Well, no, people could just type it in basically. Like we could just do
Typing would be fun.
like level 6 and then write the name of the person in, and we could all just
Yeah, that's right. That works.
or we could do polls like we did actually. I think we did that on the Monday meeting. I don't know if you're in that room, Gnome, or if anybody else wants to try setting up the Fractogram.
So is it not giving the posting message to
Yes,
post that?
I clicked on the the prompt message about everyone filling out their account, but it didn't want it to send. It had this kind of red warning sign next to the message, and as if it's not delivered. And then I exited the Fractogram, I reopened it, and then now that when I click that clip button, I don't even see the option to create any prompt. So I'm not sure how to fix this. And
That's what it did to me on Monday too. It kept saying the prompt, and I kept saying send, and nothing happened. And then it said send, and nothing happened.
Yes, right. And even with these messages hi, it was still saying that it's kind of like not delivered. So I was surprised that it went through. So I don't know. Yeah, Tadas has to look into it, I guess. But for now, maybe we can use the traditional method. Sorry for the delay. I tried to fix it, but it never happened to me.
No problem. Oh, and actually, speaking of Tadas, I see he just tried to join, and I kind of missed it. And now I don't see him anymore. I'll send a message to Tadas, and I guess I don't know how long he was trying to join for. If anybody else wants to try Fractogram, you can, but I'm gonna first send a message to Das. Oh, there he is again. Now I can.
I'll just say I hope I didn't jinx it by.
Here he is.
Okay, hello, Tadas. Welcome.
Tadas, you're muted.
Yeah, Tadas is muted. Thanks for joining, Tadas. Hope you're doing well. You came at a good time because we're actually we've just had one breakout room kind of today, and we were having issues with Fractogram again. Rosemary tried setting it up, and she had some issues. I don't know, Rosemary, you want to repeat that, or I can also try it. We're thinking of just doing the traditional method instead of Fractogram, but maybe now that Tadas is here, we can. Well, first I'll try setting it up, and if anyone else wants to, hit Tadas.
Yeah, basically
Well, it'd be good to do it live so he can see what the problems are. I wonder what he needs in order to see it.
Now I don't see like the previous messages, but when I tried to kind of generate the prompt about people inserting their accounts, EOS accounts, I had the message didn't want it to send. Seems like it had this red little sign on the message itself, and it's like it's undelivered basically. And then after that, I closed the Fractogram, I reopened it, and now I don't see. It's like I'm not really the admin. I don't see the option in this in the clip button. I don't see the options to kind of do anything with any prompt. I don't know if something that I did.
Yeah, so can you give me a link to the group?
Yes.
And how many people are there in that group?
Yes.
How many people are in the group?
Oh, there's all 6 of us are in there.
Yeah, 6 people.
Joe came late, so he's not part of the group.
I can show you what I see as well.
He only joined after the breakout room was over. I'm glad he's here.
I've also got Fractogram up now too, and I'm also having an issue where it's not allowing me to add the poll. So I just tried creating a different group. I don't know if it's the same issue you're having, Rosemary, but basically when I go to Fractalgram and I hover over the paperclip item, it doesn't give me an option for like level or like the EOS count prompts or any of the levels. If it'd be helpful, I can share my screen.
Do you have 4 people in your room, Dan?
There's 5 people right now. It's
okay.
Okay, wait a second. Okay, so we have 2 breakout rooms, and in your breakout room, Dan, there are only 5 people right now.
No, so we didn't wind up actually doing breakout rooms because there's only 6 of us in the beginning, and so we just had one room. Joe just joined like 10 minutes ago or 20 minutes ago, so we just had one breakout room, just one room, and we were just trying to do it with Gnome, me, Eric, Rosemary, Perry, and Jorge.
Yeah.
And both of us tried to do it, both me and Rosemary.
Room, and everyone except Jorge is in Dan's room right now.
Actually, now when I go into the room again, the one that I created, now I see the options.
Yeah,
Oh.
so that's probably just it sometimes takes time for it to detect, to process the messages in the room and realize how many people are there. And if there are some connection issues, that might take longer and might require some refresh.
Does it detect? Is it because we didn't go into breakout rooms?
No.
No. Telegram doesn't know that.
Yes.
I don't know anything about that.
Can you actually start the report?
I clicked on it, but nothing really happens. It's loading. I can share my screen if it's. Oops. I can share my screen if it's easier.
So you tried to send a message about the asking us to respond with the wallet, and it didn't go through?
Yes. So I'm gonna refresh. Now it disappeared.
Yeah, because see, it's loading. It will never appear until it has loaded fully.
I've also got the same issue from a group that I just tried to create where it just keeps spinning on the right side of my screen, and it hasn't loaded for the past like a minute or so, or 2 minutes.
Yeah, then remember what I told you?
Yes,
about.
I have not yet had the chance to try that now.
Having network problems?
What was that, Noam?
Could the problem be that the server? What server is this running on? Maybe that's where the delay is, because it happened to Dan on Monday at the Fractalians meeting.
Yeah, it's Telegram servers. Well, one thing you could try is to people who are experiencing this, try to go to the same room in different Telegram client, like Telegram desktop, and see if the same thing is happening.
So I can, for example, open it on my mobile.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe we can use the traditional method for now. If there's like maybe the servers are busy or something like that.
Well, Tadas, have you tried everything you can? Because this is a good opportunity to fix it live, or to help Tadas figure out what's going on. Is there anything you'd like to try before we move on to doing it manually?
Yeah, I told Dan what I need to make it easier to debug this.
Okay. Yeah, perhaps I'll share my screen real quick as kind of a resolution. I took some screenshots and I sent it to Tadas after Monday's meeting. I had some issues, and then Tadas responded to me with some things that we can do to fix it. So I saw Tadas gave that a thumbs up before when I sent it to you privately. So maybe I'll just share my screen, then maybe it makes no sense to just come back, and we have other topics we can get into as well. So maybe we should just use the more like the old school method. But
Okay.
for a second to share, this is a thing that I actually had on the topics that we could potentially discuss if there were further issues with fractograms. So this is the message I sent to Tadas asking for feedback. This is also, by the way, a really cool artwork in the middle that Space Wrangler Joe made for Upland and Alien Worlds. You can see it a little there. But then Tadas wrote some ways that we can fix it, saving the console log and sending it to him, and trying to reproduce the issue on this other client too. And then he had some other links. So I suppose I'll have to like just take some time to just learn how to save the console log and stuff like that. But I can do that after today's meeting, and maybe it's most effective use of our time to just do it with regular kind of old school method now, and then figure that out later. And then we can get into other topics if we want, or if we want to return to troubleshooting fractogram after reaching consensus, then we can do that. But we're already 10 minutes past the top of the hour, so I'd say probably best to go ahead and just do the ranks traditional way. Sound good?
Well, for me, I can't reproduce the issue right now. I could administer that group, but the issue is that there are 6 people in a group I cannot join because with 7 people it won't work.
I'm happy to give up my seat for Tadas, and if he wants to be part of it, so he can troubleshoot, no problem.
Or, but I think it would be unfair to rank me, so I think maybe.
If you solve the problem, you get 6, bro.
No, I think people should rank me as they would rank Perry, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the points. If there's any, if it can help solve a problem, that's probably the most important thing. So it's not. Don't worry about me, Tadas.
Yeah, but I think it will still be more straightforward for people to rank you than to rank me, because I did not participate in the breakout room.
Okay, so yeah, thank you, Perry, for offering. But yeah, I think what Tadas is saying makes sense. So maybe Tadas, if you want to admin and start up the fractogram group for us, and then we'll just vote for like Tadas's account. We'll just, or maybe Tadas, you can just enter Perry's account name when we do the account prompt. And then instead of voting for Tadas, we'll just vote for, like Tadas will be a proxy for Perry basically, and Perry will get the respect for the on-chain respect for this week's meeting. Does that sound good?
Yes, except I would maybe use the same group, because maybe there are some issues with that group, so I might be more likely to reproduce the issues there. So for that, I would need Perry to leave that group, and I will join.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Let me do that.
We're building live in public.
Delete and leave. Delete and leave. Uh-oh.
We already miss you.
Also, yeah, miss you so much, Perry. Get back in Fractal. No, just kidding. Yeah, I saw, by the way, Jorge asked, how did you guys get into Dan's room without me seeing any link, neither here or on Telegram? I'm not totally sure what you mean. I'm assuming you mean the Fractogram group. I don't think you mean the Zoom room. In my room, the Fractogram allows you to just invite people without having to share the link when you first open up the group. So I think that's answering your question, Jorge. If not, then feel free to clarify. But basically, when you create a Fractogram group, you can invite people without sending a link.
I just left the Telegram group dedicated to Fractogram.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Is that correct, Tadas?
Yeah, that's good. I see. We are 6 now.
Okay.
Sounds good. And I saw Rose. Oh, what's that, Rosemary?
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
It was like, it wasn't loading. It was like, it wasn't loading and I didn't see the options. Now it's loading. Did you join the group as well?
Yes, I joined it.
Yes, also there.
Great, now I see the red icon.
Oh, nice. Yes, this is what I was seeing. So you can reproduce it.
Okay, I see the log full of errors. My suspicion is that maybe something in the API, Telegram API changed, and I need to update the client, or rather to merge from the original version of the client to merge the update. Yeah, so now I have something to work with.
Great.
Hmm.
I hope it's not too much work.
Does Fractalgram need to get updated every time Telegram does an update, or is it just certain times, or how does that work?
Well, if we make some big changes, if we make some breaking changes to the API, then yeah, Fractalgram needs to be updated. But usually the Fractalgram is a fork of other Telegram web client, and usually that web client is already updated. So all I need to do is merge updates into Fractalgram.
Oh, cool. That's cool. What's that one that it what is that one function does that perform through Telegram?
What do you mean?
The one that you're borrowing the API for that already keeps it up to date. What are they using there? What are they using the API for? The one you're borrowing from?
Yeah, so it's a Telegram web client, just like Fractalgram. It's just Telegram as a web app. I just shared the link in the chat, in the Zoom chat.
Cool.
And this is the source code of that client.
Oh, dope.
Cool. Well, yeah, thanks for the questions and helping us learn about it. And glad that you got some feedback to us on how to fix it. And hopefully the API thing can be fixed fairly easily. In the meantime, well, if Tadashi you want to if you want to get any more data or anything like that to keep troubleshooting this or anything that'll be helpful, then feel free to let us know. I'll also, yeah, if it's helpful for you, then I can save the console log and send it to you and try reproducing the HTML web.telegram.org as well. And I can do that afterwards. But if it's good with you, Tadas and everybody, then we can start voting. And I also just put up a poll in the group that Rosemary started, which Tadas is now in. So maybe if Tadas leaves that group and then Perry rejoins, I just put up a manual poll and we could start voting there whenever we're ready. Does that sound good with everybody? Yep. Yeah, actually, Tadas doesn't need to leave anymore because it doesn't require less than 6. So anybody can now join it.
I rejoined Telegram.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. So yeah, if everybody's ready, then I'll vote and everybody else can vote as well. And Tadas, feel free to let us know if there's anything else that would be helpful for you to troubleshoot and diagnose the issue.
It's okay, go on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So far, there's 5 votes, and we haven't received a vote yet from Perry.
Because I don't have the link that I can reply to.
Oh, okay. And maybe if you want to just share it out loud, because I guess you joined afterwards, but it's who should be ranked level 6. Or if you want to write in the chat, either way works. I could make the poll again, but it would be kind of a lot of work to just type all the names again.
Oh, okay. So you want my vote on level 6?
Yes.
Okay.
You can write in a Telegram group if you want or wherever. Okay, so Perry voted for me, and Gnome and Jorge also voted for me. Me and Rosemary voted for Eric, and Eric voted for Jorge. So I have 3 votes, Eric has 2, and Jorge has 1 vote. Thanks all for your votes. I appreciate that a lot. Would anybody like to share their thoughts about why they voted for who, or advocate either way? Or change anything?
You're going for the money. You're going for the money. The optimism money. That's going to keep us alive somehow, some way.
Well, Jorge got money this week, so I was happy with that. For the number one thing, which is tool development. If you want, the number one thing we need is to develop that tool. And I hope Dan can go after that optimism money to develop the tool. And I'd sure be happy to working on the workflow for that tool. I had lots of thoughts. I mean, we need an integrated workflow, soup to nuts. When somebody comes in, it just does everything, not go to these 50 sites. So that's my number one priority. And I just thought this week Jorge went further on that, but I'm not against voting for Dan either, because he's chasing that same money.
What's the name of that tool?
The tool that Jorge helped raise money for is the Fractal app that Vlad is building. It's the next version of the Fractal app right now. It's called Fractal.
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah. Thanks, Perry. And yeah, I'm aiming to help. I think optimism is a really big opportunity, so I appreciate that, and I really appreciate what Jorge is doing as well. If anybody else would like to share any of the reason they can, or else we're kind of late too, so I'd be happy to switch my vote to myself if that would help us reach consensus faster. It looks like Jorge, and it looks like Eric switched to me too, so I will accept that, and so that means I'll be level 6. And thanks all, I appreciate it a lot. And now I'll put up a poll for level 5. Or maybe I'll just type it because it's faster than making the poll. We've got 3 votes, 4 votes rolling in. And it looks like we have consensus for Eric. Congratulations and thank you, Eric. And congrats on the paper as well. Really awesome work, and looking forward to reading it. Check it out.
I sent that paper to Perry, by the way, since he asked for it. So you should have it.
I do have it. Yes.
Cool. Yeah. If you wouldn't mind sending it to me too, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
I read all 47 pages already.
Wow, very fast. Got some class from Rosemary. That's impressive. I kind of want to give Perry some extra respect for that. Okay. So yeah, we got consensus for Eric there with 4 out of 6, and now we can move on to level 4. And everybody can write in the names of whoever they think is deserving to be level 4 this week. Oh, Gnome said to live chat would do better. That makes sense. It being there's only one room, but I don't know. We started here, so either way works. We can always share a link to this Telegram group in the live chat if we want to share it so everybody can see it. But I don't know if people will be interested in seeing all these names.
No, I think Gnome was referring to the paper because Jorge wanted.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Good point. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. If you don't mind, Eric, sharing in the Eden Fractal Telegram live chat or something, that'd be cool. Okay. Cool. Looks like we got consensus for Jorge on level 5, and now we can do level 3. Thanks, Rosemary, for putting it out. Okay, and it looks like there's 4 votes for Rosemary and 2 for Perry. I'd also be. I was thinking of voting for Perry. I was really pretty split. I wasn't sure. I was also thinking of voting for Gnome. I wasn't sure who to vote for. Perry, if you'd like to, I saw you voted for yourself there, Perry. If you want to advocate for yourself, you could swing the vote, or we could give it to Rosemary here.
Wait,
that was the same. Me against Rosemary? Is that what you're saying?
That's where it's at right now. She's got 4. She's got 2. Do you want to make a comeback here?
Cool. That's tough for me. I can't vote. I can't vote against Rosemary. I don't know why I can't.
Okay.
So I'm gonna have to change my vote. Yeah, she's again. She's actually doing work, and I'm just talking. Talker. Okay, fine.
I'd say your talking is definitely work, but okay, sounds good. It's definitely much appreciated work.
Okay, there it is.
Okay. Jorge writing Rosemary 2, Perry 0 in the chat. We got maybe we have some competition brewing, maybe some epic competition of the ages. Let's go level 2.
What? See? Whoa, God.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what that means. I guess Jorge, there's another time that Rosemary beat Perry. Is that right? Or
Okay.
okay.
Let's see if it works this time. I think I got it.
And it looks like there's consensus for Perry for level 2, and that means Gnome has consensus for level 1. I do think that, I mean, everybody gets respect, but I really appreciate Gnome's contributions with all the stuff with Dynamics of Hegemony. I think that's really awesome. So much respect and appreciation, and thank you, Gnome. And now we can do delegate 2. I can see who should be the delegate, or who is the delegates in the delegate spreadsheet. And for some reason, it's making me log in to view the delegate spreadsheet right now. Maybe I'll try opening a different browser. I thought you didn't need access for that.
I can see it.
Oh, okay. If you want to just let us know who is a delegate currently, and the past 4 weeks, rather.
Okay. Me, you, Tadas, Joe, Perry, and Jorge.
Okay. In the future, it might be helpful. What I usually do is like to share like the timeline about who got elected when, because that might be helpful for the decisions. But also, it's not necessary to. Who's interested in being a delegate?
I didn't hear Eric's name.
Yep.
Oh, right there. There's
Eric. Okay, I'm happy to support Eric if Eric wants to be. All right, and it looks like we got consensus for Eric. And now I suppose if one of us could go and just enter that in the Fractalgram web app and then share the link with everybody, that would be appreciated and help everybody save some time. And then we're already 26 minutes past the top of the hour. So this has been probably the longest breakout room that we ever had. So I suppose, and we have some exciting topics too. So perhaps we should get into that now. Rosemary, while you're at it, would you mind generating that web app link for us?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And well, thanks everybody for the great respect game, and much props and appreciation and respect for everybody. Thank you. That was really fun. And as always, and ever more so impressed and amazed by everything that people are doing here, all the great work. Really excited for what we're doing. What's that, Rosemary?
Team effort here.
Team effort. That's right. All right. So I guess now starting the agendas game a little bit later. Well, first off, I mean, does anybody else have anything on their mind? Are we ready to go into agendas with the topics? And I could provide a little overview, and then we can just. I didn't make a Slido poll, so I can make a Slido poll if y'all like. Maybe that's the best way. I probably should have done that while we were doing it, but I kind of forgot. But we could also just kind of play it more just casually and kind of just come to consensus as a group of what topics to discuss. Or if you'd like, I can just kind of guide with topics I think might be helpful in the order. But I know, for example, Jorge was interested in the RFG about academic research for optimism.
You haven't put any of the wallet names yet.
Yeah, well, wait, what was that? No?
I guess he knows them, so.
Yeah, if anybody hasn't put their wallet name or their account name rather in the Fractalgram group, then please do so. I'll put it back again here so that Rosemary can copy and paste it into the Eden Fractal web app and then generate that for us.
And I'll just Perry. It's grandpa, but
Okay.
you need to put in.
Cool.
I never remember how many A's it has at the end.
Yeah, me too. I always forget that. Thanks, Gnome, for the reminder.
I guess I can figure it out because it has to add up to 12.
Yep, that's right. It wouldn't be the most difficult thing to figure out, but it is easier when it's already on there. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, if anybody had any comments you wanted to share before we get into agenda game, feel free to say before, but it looked like nobody had anything else on their mind immediately.
I sent out the dissertation prospectus on Telegram. Please do not share that with anybody.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you, Eric. I won't share it with anybody. But I'm looking forward to
just get in trouble if it got out. I don't want you looking at it, but it can't be released until, you know, a dissertation is done.
Okay. That sounds great. Yeah, I encourage everybody to read it, and please help respect the privacy. And thank you so much, Eric. I'm sure it'll be awesome.
You can talk to about each other, and you can look at it. Just don't send it to anybody else.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. And then eventually it'll be more public after the dissertation, so more people can read it. Is that the idea, or is it always going to be private?
Oh no! I mean, the purpose of the information is to get it out there. The question is, how do I do that? Because you can publish the dissertation, or you can publish a paper. I'm more in line to actually publish it in a paper, which is easier because you don't have to publish the whole thing. You write just what was important. There's a lot of background information that you have to put in a dissertation that you don't have to put in a paper. And then hopefully we'll put it in a book.
Oh, it's in, I was just looking in Eden Fractal. Which part is it in? Or where did you put it?
I sent it individually to people. I didn't want to post it to a group. Did you want it?
Okay, I thought I misunderstood you right now, so I was like, I don't see it there. Okay, great.
Did you want a copy to send it to you?
Yeah, sure. That'd be great.
Just realized I was muted. Sounds great. Thank you, Eric. And yeah, I suppose to make the most of our time, I'll get into, I already shared a little presentation. Maybe I'll just do it. Tadas and Space Ringer Joe weren't here, so maybe I'll just do a quick recap for what is on the agenda as far as the topics game. And if anybody else made a proposal or wants to add to this, then of course, feel free to let me know. I'm happy to add it. And the invite's always open if anybody wants to join the Notion, so you can add them directly yourself too. So agenda, social coordination, game, and you can propose topics. This is the only topic that I think was on there. About the topics game, which we experimented with in the first week in 62, Eden Fractal 62, and we played it a few times now. I'm currently setting up the Slido poll, which will let us all vote for it in a more efficient way. But for now, I guess for the first topic, we could just kind of maybe play it by ear, or if you want to just wait for a moment while I set the Slido poll, then I can do that as well. If we want to have the Slido game as we did before, the topics on the agenda, if y'all like, I could provide like an overview of each for more detail, or however y'all like really. But I shared the link in the Telegram chat as Jorge had requested, so people can open up there. And if you have edit permissions, you can edit as well, and you can access it. Just please don't delete stuff that I wrote, because right now still working on getting permissions set up better. But yeah, basically, I suppose first off, there's like a little pinned post here, which well, I explained before just really quickly, but there's like a filter on this. In Notion databases, you can have filters. So there's a whole bunch of topics that we have that I put up. I think I put up all of these, and anybody could, but so far these are just ones I put up, but it got kind of messy, and these are kind of a lot of old topics that we might want to go back to. But I put up a filter on the database, so it just shows topics that were added in the past week. So these are topics I added all over the past. I added these all yesterday, actually, or all this morning. But these are topics I've been working on. So that explains kind of the first topic about how this works, just to kind of provide some idea about how we can organize this for the future. I think it's a pretty cool method of doing it. And then the topics, they're mostly related to optimism, because that's what I've been mostly focused on. And I think it's a really big opportunity. I know there's been some interest in the community. So for one thing, we could just discuss more about optimism. I was working on a Telegram message to introduce optimism to the community, and I didn't wind up actually sharing it because I wasn't totally sure how to write it. Maybe I'll share it right after, but I figured it'd be best just to share it here. But this kind of a draft message that I wrote explaining what it is for anybody. I think everybody was here last week, but yeah, basically last week I shared Optimism, which is an L2 Ethereum community that's highly aligned with our values for creating public goods and coordinating humanity for everyone's benefits. And there's many great synergies between Optimism and Eden Fractal that I'm excited for, and I think there'll be profoundly helpful collaborations for all, including everybody here. Perry had mentioned funding, and I think it can be a great funding source too. So yeah, I shared this presentation and I went through some of these links. I went through introducing the Optimism Collective and some others where it shows what it is, and I went through all this. We're releasing the videos about this soon as we can, so people can watch that full presentation and the discussion that we had afterwards. And then we can get back into this. If you all have any questions or comments about optimism, then happy to discuss it or discuss it in more detail. I'm just trying to find my correct tab again where I had this open as I click around randomly. So yeah, so there's a bunch of links here too that you can find, where a lot of these were things I showed, just kind of just a high level overview of some links. And then I also wrote a little bit about optimism. It's one of the most exciting, or the RetroPGF and their vision for funding public goods. And as far as I'm aware, this is the largest retroactive public goods funding system in the world. Basically, there's this system called RetroPGF, where right now there's about 200 what they call badge holders or citizens who can vote on different projects to allocate funding for. They're allocating 30 million OP in this round of RetroPGF. It's the third round, and that's about 250 times more funding than is available in the next season of Pomelo, which is offering about $150,000. The OP token, it's currently worth, like, in terms of dollars, it can totally change, but it's worth like $1.30 per token. So that's like a $40 million in rewards that they're giving out, basically, with this new innovative system for funding public goods. And the idea here is retroactive public goods funding. So as opposed to making like a grant and having to write out a lot of different stuff, basically the way it works is that people do work kind of like how we do here at Eden Fractal. So it's very aligned. And then they say, what do you do over the past few months to help optimism? And then the people who are the badge holders, they have a really interesting, innovative system for selecting badge holders and houses and stuff like that they can explain more about. But basically, those people vote on how to allocate that funding. And so I created a proposal along with Tadas and Vlad and Rosemary over the past week that I introduced last week, or the past few weeks actually, and submitted it to start an Optimism Fractal that we're aiming to start in the coming weeks, so we can share what we're doing here with Eden Fractal and Optimism Fractal for the Optimism community. I think it'd be a great opportunity to help Optimism a lot, help Eden Fractal a lot, help everybody in the world with these amazing games. I think it's really like an ideal partnership, or I don't know if it's a partnership really, but it's an ideal kind of collaboration. And this RetroPGF is a really big opportunity. And so we put in the grant to kind of start that, but this is where the most funding is and where the most opportunity is. So I'm very happy to collaborate and discuss this more. This was just announced actually. Oh yeah, there's another topic here for when it was announced, like the dates have been announced. I was on the community call yesterday where they announced the dates, and this will be starting the grant the application's open in like a week or two, and then the actual voting will happen in November and December. So we have some time to prepare, and if you all are interested in collaborating to help out Optimism, then we have a couple months to really show how much we can help Optimism. There's also some more details that I worked on to generate. I worked with AI to help with some of this, and I also used some innovative methods to try to write this. And I'm working on an article to explain more about what is RetroPGF and what is retroactive public goods funding and their mottos and ideas for impact equals profit and Esther's Phoenix. Some really inspiring ideas about how to fund public goods and reorient the way that society works, basically, so that when people create public goods that are helpful for everybody, they get funding. Because we've been doing so much that's helpful for public goods. We've had some difficulties raising funding, and we haven't really been funded other than just volunteer funding. But this Optimism community, it's very well funded. It's working at the cutting edge of innovation with Ethereum. We're working on building tools. Das and Vlad have I've been coordinating with them to help build tools so we can build with all Ethereum-based chains, and so it can make a massive impact and be super helpful, I think. So that's one of the topics. Another topic too, so I applied for the grant at the grant council. There's several different funding opportunities with Optimism. The RetroPGF is the biggest one by far, but they also have, I think actually on this page over here, in the Intro to Optimism, there's a page here where it's called Optimism Collective Grants, where you can see they have like 4 different types of grants. There's Grants Council, Token House missions, Foundation missions, and the Partner Fund, in addition to the retroactive PGF. And so the Grants Council is what I had applied for the Optimism Council, along with Das, Vlad, and Rosemarie. And you can check out the Grants Council to learn more. They have an app called Charmbrush, which is like a Web3 version of Notion. It's really fascinating, and I think it'd be a really helpful tool for us in many ways. But you can learn about all the different grant programs here. And so I did the Builder Subcommittee, which I just put in like I heard about this like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I guess, right before we did it. And so I just worked really quickly with Rosemarie and Vlad and Tadas just to get that out really quick. And I want to help the community as much as possible. You know, I think it's awesome to collaborate with everybody in the community, but there was just a quick deadline, so we put out something really quick with the Builder Subcommittee, and you can find my proposal here, or our proposal rather, in the cycle 15 preliminary. We won't hear back until probably the 23rd or maybe before then to see if it will be approved, but you can find it here for Optimism Fractal, and you can see the grant proposal that we made. I also shared the link as Jorge requested to learn more about the Optimism Fractal. There's quite a lot of details here. It's quite long and detailed. And then the academic grant, and I was meaning to share this. I heard about this a few days ago, and I've been meaning to share this with particularly Eric and Jorge and Das. Anybody could apply for it really, but this is they have RFGs, which like requests for grants, where people can they make grants they want to reward, and this guy Jack is one of the reviewers, and he's the person who like created it basically, as far as I'm understanding. I've also been in contact with him a little bit because he's also reviewing the Optimism Fractal application, and he put out a grant, or the Optimism Grants Council put out a grant looking for optimism academics. I took some screenshots here. This is all included in the topics, but you can also find the links here too. Basically, and I wrote it kind of curated too, like they're looking for writing serious academic studies on Web3 ecosystem with a focus on optimism and analyzing topics relevant to optimism, such as governance, and providing insight to how these topics can be improved for the benefit of optimism. My apologies, I meant to get this out sooner. I just heard about it, like I think on Saturday or Sunday or I think it was Saturday when I first heard about it, and I wanted to share it as soon as possible, but there is only like a day to apply. So maybe if Eric or Jorge or anybody else can share some of their existing research. There's lots of other opportunities for grants too. These grants are from 2 to 20 KOP, and I think you can name your number about what you want to request. So Eric or Jorge, if anybody else, I know Perry's written about governance a lot too, so anybody can apply for this, but I wanted to just share this opportunity with everybody. And then there's also other things too. Arbitrum Grants, that's actually the biggest layer too. It's even bigger than Optimism in many ways. They have $100,000 on Gitcoin grants, or 100,000 ARB, which I think is worth like $90,000, something like that. So there's links here. That might be another thing I want to apply for with more funding from the Ethereum ecosystem. Arbitrism is very interesting. And then there's also updates with the Eden Fractal msig. Basically, it's a high-level overview. I tried creating this msig with msig.app, and I had 3 technical issues. And then I messaged Vlad to ask for help. And Vlad said that he could help with it and create it. Basically, if anybody's interested, you could also check out this page here, where I showed the issues that we had with the msig.app and how to do it. But you don't need to, because I think Vlad is happy to help here. So I wanted to just share that. And those are basically the topics too. I had a little topic about promoting Eden Fractal more, because I think it'd be great to introduce more, especially as we reach out more to the Ethereum community. So I wrote out some different places where we can promote it more, so we can get more people joining and doing great work. And then there's a little thing at troubleshooting Fractalgram too. So if anybody wants to just kind of take the mic here and share your thoughts about any of those, then feel free. Or if we want to vote for any of these, I see also Rosemarie wrote that she said she successfully submitted, and she shared the web app results. So if anybody hasn't done that yet, encourage everybody to do so. I'll do it as well. And Perry said he successfully submitted, and Space Finger Joe said he's interested in helping with Arbitrum if you end up applying for funding with them. Thank you, Space Finger Joe, and thank you, Rosemary, for setting that up. And yeah, I could put together a Slido poll if we want to vote on what topic to discuss and that kind of more community-driven manner, or we could just kind of figure out as we go. Maybe I'll set the Slido poll in case we want to use it in the background, but that'll take me a couple minutes to get it all ready. So hope that was a helpful introduction for you all. I'm happy to go into more detail or happy to answer questions, or if anyone wants to share anything else on their mind, I'm happy to hear it as well.
I've got questions for you, Dan. What would any of these grants entail for us? Does that mean that we begin down the road of developing a new app on a new language?
Yeah, so I suppose that's two questions. What would it mean for us, and like what would we do with it, each of us as individuals and the whole community? And I'm not totally sure yet. Like the general answer is figure out ways to help Optimism, because Optimism is a community that it is well funded and it's highly aligned in our like goals and missions, and like very well structured system where it's basically, if you can help Optimism, then Optimism is willing to provide funding with you. And then in addition to funding too, it's also just there's way more people. There's a lot of great builders, lots of great tools that are built with Ethereum and EVM. So there's a lot of opportunity basically when we can figure out how to help Optimism. I don't know exactly how it will work. Like if RetroPGF, we can apply as Eden Fractal, if that'd be a good idea. Or if like maybe Perry, you could, with DNews, excellent website, maybe you could also orient DNews to also include information about Optimism or Ethereum if you're interested, just an example. Or maybe some of the stuff that Eric is doing with the Center for Governance or Alien Worlds can be also helping or also just explaining how it helps Optimism or collaborating with Optimism more. So I don't know if it's like, I'm still trying to figure out the best way to do it, if it's like a whole group thing. I think we should definitely collaborate with Optimism as Eden Fractal, but as far as like raising funding and how to best do it, I don't know if that's more like Pomelo, or we each have our own projects, or it's like a whole community thing, or maybe some combination of both. And then with regards to your second question about like developing the tool set, so that was in scope of the proposal that I made with Vlad and Tadas, and Rosemary too, of course. So I've been coordinating with Vlad and Tadas, and in that proposal that I shared, that you can find the link in the Eden Fractal Telegram chat, it's quite long, and right in the beginning it says that part of the funding that we're requesting is dedicated towards building the initial tool set to bootstrap Optimism Fractal and build and enable anybody to host fractals, to start fractals, to play fractal consensus games and so forth on EVM blockchains. So I've scoped that out with Vlad and Tadas, and Tadas has been building Firmament for a while. The Firmament's similar because it works on EVM, but also Tadas is just building like a simple smart contract. I don't know exactly who's going to do what role yet. Basically what Vlad, Tadas, and Tadas, if you want to speak out on this, if I'm getting anything incorrect or you want to add any more details, then of course feel free. But in that proposal, like we scope out a bunch of like critical milestones about what the technical deliverables will be. And that's like basically a basic front end that works with EVM. Well, first, actually, there's a basic smart contract that enables communities such as Eden Fractal to post consensus results from our social consensus games or Optimism Fractal social consensus games onto the Optimism blockchain, which is called the OP mainnet, or that could also work with different Ethereum based blockchains as well, or EVM based blockchains as well, I should say. And then there's also in that scope of the proposal a front end as well, where people can vote on it, similar to how we have a front end for the Eden Fractal. So I think that that whole tool set, I think the total timeline for the technical deliverables, if the grant gets approved from the Grants Council, which would be in like a week or two, I believe I'd have to look at it again. I think it was like 12 weeks or like something like 3 months or so. That's when Vlad and Tadas said that they could finish that initial tool set. And that wouldn't include all the tools that we're building now. That would be just for the first season, this first iteration, which would enable us to bootstrap the Optimism Fractal. And at that point, I think we could also start posting the consensus results for Eden Fractal onto Optimism as well. And then from there, we can also do future developments.
So I think there's when you look at this grant idea, there's whether you go for the big grant or do you paint the picture and break it up into pieces. And it depends on who the grant people are and how they look at things. Because to me, the function is create an integrated workflow that implements the fractal methodology. Number two is create a tool that implements that workflow, even though we're not necessarily doing it in that order, we're doing the pieces. But if you think about grant-wise, here's a reason for why we're doing that. It consists of 4 pieces. Develop the workflow, develop the tools, test the tools and distribute and implement the tools. So those are, is that 1 grant or 4 grants? It really depends on the organization. They can tell you what they like better. For example, if you're doing U.S. government, they're going to want to, well, how do we know the workflow's any good? Do that first. If you like that, then we'll fund the tool. If you like that, then we'll fund the testing. Then we'll do the distribution.
Yes. Great points, Eric. I agree. And thank you for sharing your insights as always. And yeah, just about a bit of clarity, because I don't know how much I went over the proposal that we made so far. Like I kind of briefly introduced it last week and then kind of just mentioned it this week and shared the screen briefly. But basically what we have right now is a proposal to the Optimism Grants Council to build the initial tool set that I just explained right now, and then also research for future developments of the tool set, and then also to host and start the Optimism Fractal community, a new Fractal community basically, and to host the first season of Optimism Fractal, in which case I'd be hosting it, and I'd be working with Rosemary as well to build like an Optimism Fractal brand, Optimism Fractal website, a welcome guide, and so forth, so we can introduce it to the community. So several of those different things you mentioned there, Eric, as far as like different value propositions, those are already included in the proposal to some extent for starting the Optimism Fractal. And then, perhaps if you wanted to apply or somebody else wanted to apply for the educational, the academic grant, that could also be providing more of the value propositions in another way that they're looking for as well. And then we can explore all sorts of different ways too, because they have lots of different grant opportunities and like missions that we could apply for and stuff like that, as well as just the RetroPGF. It's basically just there's 200 people or so who are making the decision about how to allocate funds and basically communicating with them, networking, and figuring out what they want most to provide the most value for their ecosystem.
Did you put the link to that academic grant in somewhere?
Yes. So the link is, well, right now the way to find it is if you go to Telegram, then the link that I shared to the Notion site, right above Gabriel's comment. Gabriel just shared a comment about Eden on EOS. I shared in the general chat, here's the Eden Fractal Notion database. So if you go there, then you click in the specific page for the RFG.
Slow down a bit. Where
Okay.
do I go in Telegram?
Telegram, general chat, and then my most recent post.
General chat for Fractal or Eden or what?
General chat for Eden Fractal.
Okay.
And yeah, I'll also share a link more directly to make it easier. I'll also perhaps just share my screen real quick to guide you through it. So once you click on the link in the Eden Fractal general chat, then you'll be then you'll see this screen, which is all the Eden Fractal topics. And then to see the academic research grant, you'll click on the topic Optimism RFG-6 academic research, and that'll bring up this in a side window. And actually, you'll have to click another page here. This is a page that I was kind of working on my note to share the message. So it's got some kind of draft messages here about what I was writing. But maybe I'll just bring the link up because it's actually kind of hidden now that I think about it. So I'll move these links up to the top of the page here.
Actually,
yep.
The way to find it is I just found in the general chat of Eden Fractal Telegram group. If you scroll maybe 5 messages up, you see from today Dan's response to Jorge, who asked about the grants link today.
Well, that's for the Optimism Fractal grant that we created, Rosemary, for starting the Optimism Fractal that we already did. But I think Eric was asking about the RFG specifically for the Optimism academics, which...
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, we just on the same. That's also in Charmverse, but that'd be a bit more difficult to find though. But it is possible to find it there. But I'll also just make it easier. My apologies. I wanted to write this all out in advance and share it in the Telegram chat, but yeah, there's been so much going on, and I've been trying to organize this. So I figured the best way was just given the limited amount of time, just to share it here, and then I'll also just write it here in the Eden Fractal chat. I just posted again, just a direct link to it to make it simple. And I'll also share the link to the Notion page directly, where I have some more details like the tweets and stuff that introduce it. Does anybody have any other questions or comments, or perhaps Rosemary or Tadas, if you want to share any more thoughts? We've been collaborating closely with all the Optimism stuff, so if there's anything that I left out that you wanted to add or share, then I'd be happy to hear from you. Really appreciate your both your help, by the way, as well as Vlad. Shout out to Vlad, who's been helping with this as well. And yeah, Perry and Eric, I really appreciate the questions and thoughts so far. So normally we wrap it up as after like a half hour or so, but I'm also happy to keep it going for a while too. I think this is a really exciting opportunity. So however much questions you guys have or anything you want to discuss, happy to discuss for a while.
I've got questions about the optimism proposal and the language that is being used. I think I heard you say that Vlad and Tadas are writing for the EOS EVM, and so therefore that would indicate that they're writing in Solidity, which is the language of Ethereum. And so, is that what optimism, a rewrite of Fractal, Eden Fractal, would occur in the Solidity language? Is that a true statement?
Yes. Not everything there was true, I don't think. So as far as I'm aware, Vlad doesn't yet know how to write in Solidity. Vlad is interested in learning in Solidity, provided that there's sufficient funding. He's expressed interest in it, and he's been doing a lot of research into EVM, and I've been discussing with him, and he's excited about it. But so far, Tadas knows how to write in Solidity. As far as I'm aware, he's been writing the firmament in Solidity, and Solidity is the programming language for the EVM, basically, if I say that correctly. So yeah, Tadas gave a thumbs up. So yeah, Tadas is, I believe that Tadas is planning to write the first smart contract that will enable people to submit consensus results on the EVM, and that's written in Solidity, and that'll enable people to do it in Optimism or any other Ethereum-based chain, including the EOS EVM as well. And then Vlad's planning to help out either, hopefully we can inspire Vlad to learn how to also code in Solidity EVM, but Vlad also suggested that he can help out with the front end and different aspects like that, which might not necessarily be directly interacting with the Solidity.
Okay, so the plan is not to program directly on Ethereum, but on the EOS EVM. Is that a true statement? Directly on the EOS EVM.
I can answer that, but I see Tadas also just unmuted. So Tadas, if you want to answer or anything.
No, I mean, we just write smart contracts in Solidity, and we can run on any EVM chain. And EOS EVM is one of those EVM chains. So we are not programming specifically for EOS EVM. We don't need to. We just program in Solidity, and it runs on every EVM.
If it's written in Solidity, it can run on any Ethereum network, including EVM, which works on all Antelope chains. But I think the important thing is, if you're asking for Optimism funds, we shouldn't be stressing the EVM in that, because they're funding stuff that works on their network. They're not funding ways to offload to Antelope. And Bjorn did call EOS Ethereum on steroids. So I mean, we're all going in the same direction in general, but if we're asking for funding from Optimism, it has to show that we're doing something for their ecosystem, and
let me.
We shouldn't be stressing the Antelope ecosystem in that application.
Yeah, there was something you said that isn't correct. You said EVM runs on every Antelope chain.
Oh, it doesn't?
No, EVM is Ethereum virtual machine. It's literally the virtual machine of Ethereum. So every Ethereum chain runs EVM.
I'm sorry. You're right. There's an EVM for Polygon as well, and I think Solana is trying to come up with an EVM also.
Yes, and there is EOS EVM, so EVM implementation on EOS. So yeah.
Is there an EVM implementation on Wax? Is it or right now is it only EOS that has an EVM implementation?
A while ago, I found some on the web. I found that they were in the process of creating EVM on Wax. I don't know if it's there yet. I don't think so.
Telos.
Yep.
Telos has one?
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't think UX even needs an EVM because it's designed to interface between networks anyway. When I was looking at the UX network, you could open a UX account with a MetaMask wallet as it is right now.
Well, I think UX has IBC built into it, which is different than EVM, but their I guess their highest level goals are similar. They're trying to connect chains, but a complete method.
Oh, all right, and they're written in C++, not in not in either Solidity or whatever. What language is EOS written in?
C++.
Yep.
Okay.
So back to Tadas, the front end is not, or rather, this I guess is a question for Dan and Tadas and whoever made that proposal. Tadas, you answered that the contracts are you're going to create the contracts in EVM, and I guess that leaves the front end not part of the proposal, or is that a different proposal, or we do that later, or how does that work?
It's part of a proposal, so only backend, the blockchain smart contracts are written for EVM, and we will change the current consensus submission app to use MetaMask instead of Anchor, and that will allow us to interact with Ethereum or EVM chains.
I got it. Okay, so the front end work is not as extensive as the back end work on that change.
Yeah, basically we replace the interfacing with Anchor with interfacing with MetaMask. That's one the essence of the change, I would say.
Okay. So the comparative, the offer, so to speak, to Optimism in terms of what we would offer, what Eden Fractal would offer that's unique is this process that we have. We're offering this process. We think this Eden Fractal process, this ranking process is unique. We think it could benefit the community, and we want to offer a tool to the Optimism community that they can all use, and it would write to their chain. Is that
so? The way Perry says it makes it sound like we're not starting an Optimism Fractal. We're just, if they fund us, Eden Fractal can become part of their ecosystem.
Well, yeah, let me explain a bit here. And I also see Jorge wrote that he'd like to hear Eric's perspective on the possibility of getting something done for the research grant too. So yeah, I'd be happy to discuss that too, especially because that's quite timely and pertinent, and it'd be great to raise funding for Jorge, Eric, or anybody else who's interested in that.
When's that done?
I think
due?
that's due tomorrow, and I don't know what time it is. But yeah, sorry for the short notice. I just heard about it just over the weekend, and I wanted to share it sooner, but that's due tomorrow. So perhaps you can get like a quick grant, and I'm happy to help too. If you want any help, like guiding, like understanding the Optimism Grants Council, how it works and stuff, then I'm happy to help guide you through the process. We could do it now, or perhaps we could also meet later today if you'd like as well. That offer is open for you too, Jorge, or anybody else who's interested in participating in the academic research grant. And then I suppose we can come back to that in a moment, but first I also want to respond to what Perry and Gnome were saying there. So yeah, a couple of things that might be helpful to just explain more with the grant that's been made so far, or not the grant that's been made, the proposal that's been made so far for the Optimism Fractal, because there's multiple things that we're aiming to provide in this grant. I encourage everybody to read it, and that'd probably be helpful. I spent a lot of time writing this, and it's quite a comprehensive grant proposal. So it's both for the tools that are being built, and then it's also for the Optimism Fractal. And then I also think that Eden Fractal should start posting consensus results and collaborating more with Optimism as well. So there's like multiple different dimensions to it. There's building the tools, there's hosting the first season of Optimism Fractal and starting Optimism Fractal, as well as launching a brand and collaborating with the Optimism Fractal community. And then there's also one other thing that I think I just mentioned, but I just went blank. And this proposal in particular, this was a proposal that I made with Tadas, Vlad, and Rosemarie for this amount of funding for the Grants Council. As I said, we tried to put together a quick proposal, and I've been in close contact with Tadas and Vlad and Rosemarie. So I heard about this like a few days before, and so we just had to rush and put it out there. And we can explore many different opportunities for how we can help Optimism and raise more funding and provide more value. And we can really be creative, like, and that's one of the things I think we should brainstorm in this meeting and future meetings. I see Tadas. Sorry, I have to go. See you. Thanks, Tadas, for joining. If you want to share anything real quick before you go, then feel free. But otherwise, I hope you have a great day and really appreciate everything you're doing.
I have a question for you in light of what you just said.
Okay.
Let's assume that they fund the Optimism Fractal and they don't fund the Eden Fractal.
Okay. Is that the question?
Yeah, that's the premise. The thing that I'm concerned about is that when we started the AW Fractal, it turned out being exactly the same people. If we end up with an Optimism Fractal that has exactly the same people as we have here, but doesn't have the history that we're more than a year old, Optimism Fractal would have to wait a whole year before it builds up the kind of history that we have. So the question is, don't we want to combine the two?
I don't think we should combine the two. Eden Fractal's got its own thing going, and we have a brand, and we have a long history. And I think that it makes more sense to start another Fractal and just coordinate and make sure that we do have, like, just promote it well. So one of the things about the Fractalien Worlds Fractal proposal was there were some funds raised. We raised some funds. I wound up earning like quite little because I wound up paying most of what I raised to Vlad to help out with some other development. And overall, the proposal that we made for Optimism Fractal, you know, Optimism is a lot better funded than Fractalien Worlds. And there's also a lot more opportunities ongoing because this is kind of like a bridge and an opening to the wider Ethereum ecosystem, as well as RetroPGF. The RetroPGF has a lot more funding opportunities that we can dedicate a lot more effort into building it. So the idea is that with this proposal, we're also building the tools for EVM that can be helpful for all EVM-based blockchains or just communities, and then also building a website for Optimism Fractal, building a brand, building social media, networking at events, and so forth. So if this proposal gets passed, then we'll have more resources to focus on it more fully. And one of the things I also aim to do, one of the things that I mentioned in this proposal is we don't have a sponsor right now for Eden Fractal, or Patrick's funds will be running out in like a week or two. And oh, by the way, quick update there. I haven't made the proposal for the past few weeks just because we're changing the msig. And so I figure it's best to just make that. So once we get the msig change and figure that out, then I'll put the proposal through for sending the funds out for the past few weeks. Thanks for the patience and sorry for the delay there. But yeah, basically, man, I keep forgetting what I was going to say. I keep getting distracted. But anyway, I think I said most of what I wanted to say there, that with this proposal, we'll be able to focus a lot more on it. Do you want to add something, Rosemary?
I think that's what you were saying. Yes.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. If you want to share any more details, then feel free. I'd be happy to hear your thoughts. I know, I mean, I've heard your thoughts many times, but if you want to share for anybody who's watching, everybody who's here, I'd be happy to hear it. Also, the next thing I was going to do too was just briefly share my screen for the section of our proposal about what we're going to build, and also the milestones, because I feel like that might provide a bit more clarity about what exactly the Optimism proposal is, and then how that can, what the Optimism Fractal proposal is, and then how that can, how we can figure out how to collaborate as a community. I see Perry give a thumbs up with that in mind, and approach more funding opportunities and collaboration opportunities and so forth.
Also, I just remembered, I don't know if you answered Noam's questions. What if Eden Fractal doesn't get funded?
Oh yeah, the thing I was going to, thank you, Rosemary. So the thing I was going to mention there is, yeah, because I was mentioning sponsorships and how Patrick's sponsorship is running out. One of the things that I mentioned and kind of requested in this proposal is for Eden Fractal to be funded with a fairly similar funding mechanism that we've had so far in Eden Fractal, where instead of EOS being given out by Patrick or myself, I asked for the Optimism Grants Council or community to somehow fund Eden Fractal with 100 OP per week, which is currently worth like $130 per week. So it's not a huge amount of funding, but it's something that's kind of consistent with what we currently have. So that's a bit of funding specifically for Eden Fractal. And then I think there's a huge amount of potential here. Like this is very aligned, and Optimism, I think they really want, and they'll really want what we have at Eden Fractal, as well as Optimism Fractal and these fractals in general. So I think it's up to us really, like how much we want to promote and how much we want to network. I think that makes sense for us to collaborate on this opportunity a lot. And then I think that when we can convey the benefits of Eden Fractal to the community, there'll be that Optimism community will be very interested in providing funding for Eden Fractal, the community members in Eden Fractal, Optimism Fractal. I think it's a really good opportunity. Obviously, I can't make guarantees or anything like that. It's possible that Eden Fractal doesn't get funding, or members and the Eden Fractal don't get funding, or they don't pass this proposal, or all these different things. But I've never seen such a good opportunity in such an aligned community. So I think that we can do the best we can, and I think there's a good chance that we can generate a lot of funding for everybody here, as well as provide benefits for everybody in the world, basically. Thank you, Rosemary, for reminding me, and thanks, Gnome, for the question. And yeah, if you had any more thoughts, Rosemary, or if anybody else had more thoughts, then feel free to jump in. But maybe, as I said before, I'll just share my screen again to briefly show a little bit about this proposal, and people can kind of wrap their heads around how Eden Fractal can collaborate with this Optimism Fractal proposal in mind. So, yeah, I'll share here. There's like probably 20-30 questions they wanted to ask us in this proposal, and so it's quite long, quite detailed. They probably take like 15-20 minutes to read it all. If you want to just like a high-level overview, the first couple questions: how do you justify the size of this grant request? We kind of give like a high-level overview, where part of it is building the tools, and part of them is for education materials and hosting weekly events and providing support for the first season. And that explains a little bit about funding Eden Fractal as well, or the possibility of that. And then the next section about what are you going to build. This section talks about this in more detail, basically. It introduces Optimism Fractal. It says how it's inspired by Eden Fractal and Fractally. It also links to Fractalien Worlds Fractal and Art Fractal and Aqueduct and other communities who are cooperating with fractal processes throughout. It talks about how our development team, i.e. Vlad and Tadas, will build tools to facilitate consensus games. They'll be at the core Optimism Fractal, and talks about the first iterations. And then our marketing team, which is me and Rosemary, will create education materials and tutorials to introduce a novel concept of consensus games to builders in the Optimism and wider Web3 community. And much more about that, about providing a joyful community space where builders can meet friends and learn from each other, and so forth. And then this also goes on talking about how once the tools and welcome materials are ready, we'll host the first season of Optimism Fractal, where builders come together for weekly events, and how we're planning to record videos, and also a little bit more about just how it works, as well as ideas about like agendas games and so forth. So, and then also this last sentence is saying that proposal is only for the first season, but we aim to grow it for perpetuity for the future of Optimism Fractal, and we think that this can sprout many more fractals and much more collaboration in the future. If you wanted to scroll down, there's lots more links about why what we're going to do is going to be, why we're going to build is going to succeed. This is also kind of in progress to. There's a few things that I didn't have the chance to write it super well because we had a limited timeline. So I'm kind of editing it and fixing it along the way too. So not everything's written perfectly and can be improved over time. But there's questions about why it's novel and is it likely to bring builders to the Optimism ecosystem. The main objective of this grant system was about bringing builders to Optimism ecosystem. So we talked about that and also how it's will improve the quality of developers and improve the commitment of developers in Optimism ecosystem. So to Gnome's point, it is very much focused on helping Optimism, and I think that's what they most want to see. And we can also communicate how Eden Fractal and so forth can help Optimism as well. And yeah, basically there's more details, lots of questions about competitors and differentiation and composability of the software, and about the team members who are who help make this proposal and why we can succeed in making this proposal. And I also mentioned the Eden Fractal and many community members. I said in addition to the 4 team members who submitted the proposal, there's many more talented community members who I think are very interested or will be very interested in helping. And I gave some shout outs to all the different fractals and people who are helping, as well as more links. So it's quite detailed with the roadmap. Oh, and this is one part that I want to show too. This might be helpful to help people understand the scope of this. It provides a roadmap of the phases of the proposal. And then there's also milestones where we aim to create both benchmark milestones about what we're aiming to do, and to Noam's point about bringing more people or attracting more people, some of the milestones like we have, and these are kind of aspirational milestones. I think we could potentially overachieve them if this really grows a lot, which I think it will in a fitting environment like Optimism will provide. But the proposal or it has like milestones about the amount of people who will participate in the meetings, and we have a milestone that by 1 year from now there'll be at least 50 builders average attendance in each meeting. By 6 months from now there'll be at least 20 builders, and so forth. So we kind of have some milestones for how many people will join and so forth that we're aiming to achieve. And then we also have some critical milestones that we need to achieve in order to earn the funding in the grant, regarding the deployment of the first smart contracts on October, in just about a month, and then deployment of the front end in November, and then updating Fractogram also in November to work with it as well, and then hosting the 8 events in relation to the welcome guide. I was talking with Tadas this morning, we're messaging with about trying to get this sooner, because RetroPGF is really the biggest funding opportunity. The total amount of funding that was available in this grants council is $1 million or so worth of funding, which is quite a lot. But we requested 30,000 OP for this proposal, but the RetroPGF is 30 million OP, which is currently worth about $40 million. So it's about $40 million more, or $39 million more worth of funding for the actual RetroPGF. And so our idea was this proposal kind of introduce ourselves, and we can raise some funding to support this, and that'd be great. And then we could introduce it to the whole community and collaborate and figure out the best ways to succeed with RetroPGF, which you can learn about in the other topic I created. And then if you go back to Optimism site, optimism.io, and you click on the top about RetroPGF, then you can learn more about this program. And as I mentioned, in the links or in the Notion database, I also provided links to the dates, but this is starting, the actual voting will take place in November. So hopefully we can start with the Fractal and create a lot of benefits and show people the benefits by then, so we can raise funding and figure out the best way to do it, whether it be as Eden Fractal as a whole group, or with people's individual projects, or some combination of that. I hope that was a helpful overview. Be happy to answer questions. And also, I know it's been about 15 minutes since Jorge said that he'd like to hear Eric's perspective on the possibility of getting something done for the research grant. And usually we do wrap up in 15 minutes. I'd be happy to go longer if you do want. But if anybody want to comment on that, I know there's a lot of information too. So we'll release the video if you want to review any of this. And also all that stuff is shared in the Notion page that I shared in the Telegram. So you can review all the information there. And then I'd be happy to communicate outside, especially if Jorge or Eric, you wanted to focus on next steps. If you are interested in the academic grant, then we'd be happy to discuss it now, or anything else that people have in their mind.
I am interested, but I'm almost booked solid through Friday afternoon when I leave here. So I don't think I could turn it around in time.
Okay.
But what's nice is I could pull things right out of the prospectus. I could pull bits and pieces of that, put something together, but I don't think I'm do it. I won't be home till late tonight.
Okay.
And then I book tomorrow morning. So
okay.
I'm gone all day tomorrow. So I'm pretty much out of my office till late tonight, and then till tomorrow afternoon, evening. I'm not even here. I'm out. So I'm at events.
Okay. Well, thanks for letting us know. And just a couple more things I can add with that in mind. One thing I forgot to mention too that is relevant is for the academic grant as well as the Optimism Fractal grant that we already applied for. There is a 12-month lockup for the grant rewards, basically, and that's all in OP as well. So that's not immediate funding anyway. There is potential of like a code grant, which is immediate, but that's just something to be aware of. The RetroPGF, that funding would be available in January, I believe, but this would have a 12-month lockup. So, and then there's many more opportunities. Like I said, RetroPGF, it's really the biggest opportunity, and this happens every quarter, I believe. So this is like an ongoing thing. They have a quite a sustainable system, I think, because they use Optimism. I mentioned last week, they have the super chain, they're collaborating with Coinbase and many different, and OpenAI and many different big companies. And the fees from the blockchain, they cost approximately 10 cents for a transaction on Optimism. All the fees go into fund RetroPGF. So they have a system that seems to be sustainable, and this happens every quarter, and much more funding is available for RetroPGF. So if you're not able to do the academic grant, then there's a lot more opportunities coming. And I also share the other page. There's missions and lots of different programs they run in addition to RetroPGF that might be helpful ways to raise funding. But that being said, Eric or Jorge or anybody else who's interested, I'm not sure what the application process is with this. I don't see like a big like ours was like a huge thing with 30 questions that we had to answer, but it might be possible just like send them a quick email and be like, hey, I'm interested in applying for this, and I have something that I've already written, and maybe you can ask them, or maybe you can read this more closely and see, maybe even if you only have 10 minutes, you might be able to send it a quick email and apply. But it's totally up to you, but I just wanted to put that out there. I'm not sure, maybe it takes hours and hours, but you'd have to do a little bit of research to find out exactly how much. But as far as I can see, it doesn't seem like there's a huge amount of like application process, and if you've already written something, then maybe a lot of the work is already done. And it would be helpful to get the word out more.
I'm going to go out and ask because I actually have an academic support team that does stuff. So I actually run, one of the reasons I'm busy is I actually run a team that has like 14 people in it. So my plan is to pass it off to them. I'm already saying, hey, look at this site, and because I do have writers in there that do that kind of stuff. So
there's also, I think, a review process. So I don't know, at least with the Optimism grant, once you submit, then there's a review process, which is a few weeks, which they ask further questions if they're not sure about anything, and they give you a chance to edit and rewrite the proposal. So that's a good option too.
Yep, that's a good point too. If you could just maybe get something out quickly, then you can always, I think you can edit it over the next couple of weeks. And thanks, Rosemary, for mentioning that. And yeah, Eric, that's cool too. I wasn't aware of this team that you had going on. So that sounds awesome, and looking forward to hearing more about that in the future.
The projects that the team is working on is delivering housing at half the cost, demystifying digital transformation for nonprofits, and the research that I'm doing. So that's where that team is aligned. But there's some overlap. So what I'm trying to do is get these products here so I can actually roll it out into businesses. So I'm looking to partner with anybody to create that effort. So mostly I'm focusing on nonprofits. Why? Because it fits into what else we're doing. I love doing things that accomplish multiple directions at once. Rather than do 50, anytime I can do one, I'll do it. So because we already have something to offer to nonprofits, that rolling out. And by the way, my role in all this is to turn all these things into businesses. So that's why I run the leadership group, is to take all this stuff that people are doing and turn it into stuff that is sustainable and makes money.
Sounds great, Eric. I love it. And
so that's why I like all
the
the stuff you do. My job is to help as many people make money and make the world a better place as possible. So, you know, one thing I want to do is provide a commercial source to run funds back to fund people to continue this work.
Did you say you have some sort of leadership group?
Yeah, I am chief strategy officer for an organization called I Value Global, and we're altruistic academic entrepreneurs who know ivory tower stuff, and our job is to turn the latest research into products, services, and organizations, creating companies and nonprofits, whatever. And so our most long-term project is on affordable housing. So our goal is to build both our prototypes this year, a ADU, or a tiny home in my backyard, and a 4,000 to 6,000 square foot house, probably about 15 minutes away from me on 7 acres. The digital transformation, demystifying that, providing a guide to make it easy for organizations to implement technology. That book should be out in a few months. And so I'm building the quiz funnel. I will be building a quiz funnel, the marketing, to start reaching out to those organizations. And then my research will eventually get turned into some product or service. And I Value Global isn't like we're a company that has to do everything and own everything. We're the exact opposite. We create platforms, buses to connect people, to connect the different groups. And so what we do is aggregate small capabilities and to be able to go after big jobs, if that makes sense. So what's nice about that is if we have an Eden group and then they ask, do you have developers? Any of us can say, yes, we do. Do you have designers? Sure. Do you have facilitators? Yes, we do. So even if people have their own, even if they have their own company, their own organization, they can represent themselves or as the big organization. So what we do is create basically holistic buckets to solve problems and make it look like it's a big company. It's our way of combating multinationals coming in and owning everything and then wanting you to make least as possible. You know, they want all money going to them. One way to think about it is just imagine if Amazon existed, but the platform was not for Amazon. It was for the customers and store owners and all those people. And the goal wasn't to take as much money from you to run the platform, but to run the platform as cheaply and efficiently as possible. I don't know if I explained that well. There you go. It's opened up a little secret. It's not been secret, but
I wish my government would take those principles. Right?
So we actually have 2 grant writers we're partnering with right now, and we're at the process of turning over. We actually have a design for a veterans village and an elder care village, an elder village and a veterans village that we're turning over there. And they've got these technology centers that are trying to redo education that we're looking at partnering with.
Have you explored Earthships?
Yeah, but the problem with Earthships, it doesn't, what we're really saying is 3 pillars. One is dignified living. How do you make people happy with where they live? Food, your environment. We're not making judgments. If somebody wants to live in a tent, we're good with that. We just don't think the tent should have rips and holes in it. You know what I mean? And we don't, people, it's not about telling people what they do. It's about giving them the opportunities to have, health care, wellness, and a place to live. The other pillar for happiness is work and relationships that matter. And that's why I'm interested in what we're doing here. It really fits into both those work and relationships that matter. We're academics, so we know how to train people to do work. We know how to do job placement, all that kind of thing. So those are basically the 3 pillars: dignified living and work and relationships that matter. And out of that dignified living, we picked housing as a, so take the housing problem. Well, who's involved in that? Well, you've got real estate funders, architects, designers, site prep, permit, property managers, vendors, transportation. So when you put all those into a platform, that's kind of what we do. And now extend that platform into homelessness. I've been talking to our civic leaders on that because they don't even know what's going on. So if we can wait to tie all those organizations together. And so what drives the underpinning of that framework? Well, we're using service level architectures, which we know how to do. Now add the DAO on top of that, then add the governance on top of that. And then that becomes the housing platform, but it also becomes the homeless and eventually becomes a community platform to run communities effectively.
Oh, this is so beautiful.
Did I explain that okay? I know that's a lot of stuff.
I really like it.
I've got 10 acres in the desert. I'm not kidding about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Imperial Valley, which is near where Eric lives. Yeah. It's for sale.
What do you have?
I have 10 acres in the desert. It's for sale. And you could put a small community there.
Is it got water?
I don't know.
Where is it at?
I honestly don't know. I know right next door there's a farm for growing palm trees. But on this particular property, which has been in my family since the early part of the 19th century, yeah, it's just been there, and the descendants, of which I am one, have decided to sell it. So it's now for sale. It's 10
Which
acres.
state is it in?
What's that? I'm sorry?
What state is it in?
It's in California. It's in Southern California, just east of like San Diego, between San Diego and LA, but east in the desert, near a town called El Centro.
Okay.
It's right beside the Salton Sea Lake, so it's not very far from the Salton Sea. And right now, it's really just a place where people go and ride motorcycles and camp on the weekend. They go there and they ride their motorcycles, which I've done many times before when I was living in California. We'd go out there and drive motorcycles. So there's really almost nothing out there. But
there's some cool stuff out there right now. Actually, there's Slab City is an amazing thing. You should check it out. There's like documentaries on it, and there's Salvation Mountain, and there's a huge art community that's blossoming out there at the Salton Sea right now. It's within the past decade. It's like really changed, and it's really weird. You should check it out, Barry.
On the east side or west side of the lake?
East side.
Okay. Well, we just sold a piece of property on that side. we just sold a lot. Yeah, just sold a lot on that side.
And here's a weird thing. My friend's a Native American leader out there, and they just had a huge battle. There's a bunch of lithium out there that they were trying to mine, and they just had a huge battle. And
we actually met with that tribe right before the pandemic.
Whoa!
And we were actually going to do a satellite school, and because they're they're bringing baseball players to do spring training, and they wanted to build a industrial park. And one of our arguments is, do you want to just collect it or do you want to run it? And very low percentage of people with degrees. So he said, it's nice that you have the land, but why don't you run it? Why don't you be the boss? And for Rosemary Slab City, we're actually playing with insulated concrete forms because there's a lot of technologies, but the idea in building houses is, can you create one that creates jobs, regional economic development and jobs, something you can train people starting at low scales and move them up so they get more money and so they can start their own companies, and that you can create manufacturing and factories. So that's one of the considerations, is do it in a way that just doesn't deliver houses, it delivers community.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about in terms of sustainable living is something that for many years I've been thinking about. I haven't acted on it, but I've been thinking about it for quite a bit. That's why I mentioned earth ships. I think it's a fascinating idea. And I'll tell you.
It is, but it's very difficult. It's a cool thing for people that want to create a community that do that. Tuning earth ships, earth homes are very challenging. You got to tune them just right to get them to work. But it's not really good for creating jobs and moving that out if you're interested in rapid economic growth.
Here's the crazy part, Eric. Here's the crazy part. You talk about doesn't create jobs and right. Okay, what if you had a house that didn't need electricity because you generated your own, and your house was thermally cooled and warmed, so you didn't need an air conditioner, you didn't need a heater, because the way you built it, you oriented it in the right direction, and you minimized the amount of energy required for the climate. You didn't need food, even if you lived in a snowy environment or even in the desert, because you could grow inside of the building itself. So you don't need electricity, you don't need food. You have a house, you can grow things, you don't need to work. What if you lived what if you had that situation? People wouldn't have to work 40 hours a week. We would completely transform our society. You wouldn't need the normal type of a job.
I'm not saying that's not great. And I would say if we can build one of those, but that is what you're saying is, why don't we convince people to think differently and behave differently? Let's get that marketing. Now let's get the organization to support that. Now let's put that in. Worthwhile effort, go for it. But meanwhile, people can't afford a place to live. People are homeless. People don't have those communities. You get veterans and communities, people that just want to connect. The effort to go get that in is worthwhile, and I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying if you find people that want to do that, and there are, even in Imperial Valley, there's some earth ships, do it. But that's very difficult to say, how are you going to solve the problem that the society is what it is and people don't have jobs, and there's plenty of areas all across the US and in the world where there's a big box store and a gas station and everything else is closed. How do you solve that problem? And if you say the answer is, well, we'll just teach people to need less and we'll change the way they think and we'll put earth ships in the middle of Ohio and Nebraska and Kansas and Canada and in the Sierras, that's a good thing. I just view that as more of a longer term effort, which is not adverse to what we're doing at all, because we would figure out, how do you turn this into a sustainable system? In other words, you have to take your great ideas and say, all right, now show me the organization and the infrastructure and the sustainable continuation that makes that happen.
Well, okay, this is a great discussion, and I hope you guys are okay with having it here in this room. I would say the source of the problem is the monetary system, and the fact that we have financialized the entire economy, and most of the utility that most of the 40 hours that somebody works a week, well, we know a huge chunk of it goes to taxes to the government itself, but also a huge chunk is an unseen tax, but by the monetary system and the banks, and this illusion that we need to pay for all of these utilities to sustain ourselves. We can create lifestyles that minimize all of that stuff, and I think that's it. I agree, it's not an easy thing. It's not. No,
that's where. But that's
if all you do, hang on, let me finish. If all you do is just create a place where homeless people can live, but they have to enslave themselves Is that a solution? I mean, I don't know what you guys have created.
And so how do you do that quickly, and how do you minimize that? And I'm saying you don't wait for the financial system to change and our legal system to change. I'm saying within the constraints we have, how do you create communities that maximize growing your own food, energy production? How do you create investment where if I'm part of that community and I like to play golf every day, why can't I own part of the golf course? Not an HOA, not force funding, but how about if you allow people to invest in the communities, and how about if we help them start jobs? And if they don't want to work, I'm okay with that too. Create places, homeless people. Right now, if you say, oh, I want to have this vision for you, a lot of people go work 40 hours a week, you're crazy. How do you allow them to build houses at the most affordable? Because you can scale this down. You don't need a big house, but if you want a big house, you can do that too. So our thing is, how do we use technology within the system we have and solve a lot of these things directly? On the other hand, we're very pro, let's change the fundamentals. I just know that takes a lot of time.
Okay.
If you say before we can get started, we have to solve the financial way we do financials and the way we need the people think and the way we do this, you can do that, but put decades in your list of getting that done. And I'm for that, but I'm also for here's some kid getting out of college, he can't afford a house. What are you going to do?
I have the answer to that as well. Believe it or not, you're going to be amazed. You're going to be amazed. I dropped a link a few days ago for a company called Shintai. Shintai is developing digital securities, digital tokens. They're digitizing a wide range of resources. All of them are known as real world assets, RWAs. Among those are debts, oil, gold, carbon credits, but also real estate. There's a company, one of their clients, which they haven't launched yet, but I know one of their clients because I'm following closely, is a company called Bricklet, bricklet.au. It's an Australian company. And there's a number of these out there. That's not the only one, but they're a client of Shintai. And what they're planning on doing is digitizing homeownership. So they're going after the same demographic that Dan and Rosemary are, young people in their 20s and 30s, or anybody who wants to own a home but can't afford a home, because we have a different economy these days. But they can afford a piece of a home. They can afford shares of the home. And therefore they can benefit from the traditional asset appreciation that real estate has, because real estate is always fixed. There is no increasing the supply unless we go to Mars. So that asset has had an obstacle to entry, to use an economic term, an obstacle to entry, which is you got to buy the whole house. So they're digitizing that. So that's another idea. So this is not in conflict with what you're saying. This is in conflict.
No, it's not. It's not all. And we actually have looked at things like that. We've even looked at how about if you got paid to start building a home, because you can use the solar power to be part of the server, to be part of the information network. So what if that house earns money just from being there? So we're looking at things like that. And because we're plugging in these various things, we don't care. I mean, we do, but we're like, yeah. So constantly look at each of those things. How can you make them better and plug them together? So the real thing we're interested in is how do you get all those people to plug in together? We don't care if the technology shifts from an earth home to a slab home to SIPs to insulated concrete forms to 3D printing. The question is, how do you put all those things together to optimize what you're trying to do from an individual and a community basis, in the short term with long-term sustainability?
Do you care about waste processing and electrical power storage, batteries?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
Those are things that we have to do communally, not just build a single house. But sometimes the house might have the solar panels, but you have to store it for the night, and that's something you want to provide at the community level.
And there's some very interesting technologies that take the energy and turn it back. Even things
Yeah,
like
but they work
shift and
much
all that.
better when you do them at scale. You don't want to do your waste processing, everyone in their own sub-basement. You want to do it in a
So,
on scale, because it works better on scale.
imagine you're looking at methods and technologies that do scale, but don't depend on scale. To say we have to wait, that's how we started, by saying, let's get a community and buy-in. Okay, how long is it going to take you? Let's say you want to get 100 acres and do that. Think you get it done next month, month after that. We even went to cities and we talked to mayors, and they're like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Then when you went to did it, they, oh no, you have to solve everything first and do it. You know, it was like 5 to 10 years of red tape, even though they all agree they wanted it. So that's how we started. We started by saying, let's build a community. We even did some community design, and we're not adverse to that. We'll still work on that. But at the same time, there's this narrow scale of Dan or Rosemary just want something right now. Okay, how can they get it? And how can we do that in a way that scales? And as we improve the technologies and the methodologies, you know, and what I'm really interested in is something I call a community operating system, which the fractal should be the overlaying architecture. So I'm really about governance of people living and working together at the large scale. That being said, what are we working on today? What Dan's doing is putting a proposal today. Dan could put in a proposal that says, let me solve the world, and it'll involve all this stuff, but he's much more likely to do what he's doing and get it done. So that's kind of what I'm doing, is trying to take pieces that actually get it done. Let me build a prototype this year of something we could sell. Do I care that that's the prototype for next year as things change? No, I don't. We find a new way to do it, but it's not so much how do we come up with all the solutions, it's how do we connect all the people and together come up with solutions, as many as possible, which means some people have to be worried about how do I afford it, or how does money work? Other people have to worry about materials and transportation. Other people have to worry about design and architecture. And so we're not trying to say a community has to be like this. We're trying to say, if you want to put an Earthship architects with decentralized financiers, our system should work with that, because we don't really care about trying to tell people how they need to live and think. We're like, how do we get all that working together? And we've done this with corporations, actually. We've done corporations that take different pieces. We know how to do that legally and logistically, but I haven't seen anybody do what we're doing with the idea of community.
Is this idea, would you say the spirit of this is in line with the United Nations and World Economic Forum, or would you say it's independent of that?
Well, it's independent of that, but it's not adverse to that, because really all we're doing is building a bus. At our core, we really build a bus that allows people with individual identities to plug themselves in and call themselves also a bigger identity, and they can scale it. You can, our design is an open source bus that we can even give other people to do the same thing.
So would you say one of the highest order principles is decentralization? Because that's the opposite of UN and WEF.
That's kind of an interesting question, because it really depends on.
I'm an interesting guy.
Well, it depends on community. So all we're really interested in is a community that has people feel good about where they're living, and they have work and relationships that matter. So how do you do that? On the whole, when you look at big picture, I think that can be very decentralized. When you look at it as small picture, it's kind of central.
That's a good point. No,
you're a centralized community. So if you're going for a grant, you can say, we want to help this group of homeless or veterans or students or other people live together and make decisions effectively. Okay, that doesn't sound decentralized, But when you look at the platform, that can be very decentralized when you scale. Because should that community really have to depend on other communities? It shouldn't really. It should be as independent as it can, especially with food and entertainment and energy, just kind of like what you were saying.
Oh, the UN is so bad that anything that's the opposite of the UN must have something right.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about decentralization versus centralization. Like I try to imagine how it would how it could manifest throughout the globe, but how far does that go to the edge of the network, so to speak? Let's say in the future, 2050, something magical happened, and the governments of the world, and including the United States, somehow found themselves in a decentralized state. And then the states themselves became somewhat decentralized, and the local communities became decentralized. And then what do we have beyond the local communities, the cities, or let's say that's the local community. But
I
ultimately,
think that's how the United States started out. Sometime
hang on, no,
along the way.
hang on, no. When we get to the family, can we have a family that's decentralized? Right?
I doubt it.
Do the kids make the decisions? How far do we go? Where's that line that makes sense? I mean, clearly, we don't want to have children making decisions.
I do, but I have very special children.
I don't have any kids, so maybe I don't know. Maybe that's
My brother was offered to go to a gifted school when he was 12 years old, and my parents let him choose, and he chose not to go. He chose not to go. And a lot of their peers were saying they were crazy, and they were saying, and my parents said, if he's smart enough to go to a gifted school, he's smart enough to make decisions for himself.
good point. Good point. Yeah. So I guess that my point is that was my point is how far do we let that go? There's always there could be a line. Not everybody's kids are gifted, and none of them they're not always mature. But there, I guess my point is that there's a place for centralization in a society that has adopted decentralization. And for me, the question is just where is that line? Where do we how does that transition look like? Right. So we're pushing. All of us are pushing for decentralization. But what if we got it? And do we want it everywhere? I don't know.
I would ask, how do we design a decentralized system that a 3-month-old baby can learn to work with safely?
Wow. 3-month-old baby. I don't know. No, you got me on that one.
I don't know the answer, but I think it's a worthwhile question.
Okay. A robot.
Well, a robot, a playground where he can try all kinds of different things, and they're all designed to be safe. We shouldn't make the assumption that just because they're babies, they can't learn. And if we teach them when they're babies that they have to respect a centralized figure, they'll do it when they're adults too. So we have to figure out how to do decentralization from the start. And the reason it's critical is we have experience with babies. We've been doing this for millennia.
Now, Noam, you're starting to sound like a school teacher who's pushing transgender agenda.
No, I'm not talking about transgender. I'm certainly talking about being safe. I'm asking the question. I'm not saying that babies should be, although some people do teach their babies to swim by throwing them in the water, and when they're a few months old, they don't have a problem because they've been floating in the womb all along. So I'm not saying that always applies. I didn't throw my babies in the water when they were a few months old. A few months old. I waited until they were.
That's how I learned how to swim. The instructor brought me to the pool. When I was a child, I was in the class. I didn't want to go. She took her heel and she shoved me in the pool. That was my swimming lesson, and it was over.
How
Then I
old
could
were
swim.
you?
I learned how to swim. That's how I learned
old
how
were
to
you?
swim. And I'm a fish today. Today I'm a
How
fish.
old were you when she threw you in the water?
Probably 7 or 8 years old, something like that.
Okay, I put my kids in the water and I taught them first how to float when they were 1 or 2 years old.
And I skipped the floating part.
What?
I skipped the floating part. I just got the heel. I got the heel.
But anyway, the thing I was going to say is how we deal with babies. We have a record of millennia of what works and what doesn't work. But we have a new type of babies that are much smarter than human babies. They're much more powerful, and they're running on silicon.
Yeah.
We need to figure out how to teach them to be decentralized. We need to do it fast before they decide that our central organizations are a threat to them.
You're talking about AI? What are you talking about?
Exactly.
Okay.
They're babies now. And what we teach them, they're going to learn. If we teach them how to emulate people, look what people do. People have wars. People kill each other. We teach them to be like us. They're going to kill us because that's what we do. We have to figure out how to do it better before we start teaching them. And decentralization is important.
Well, that I totally agree with. Yeah. This is a very interesting conversation, guys. I really appreciate it. Yeah. And Eric, I'm motivated to learn more about your group. Is that group that you're talking about that is designing these future decentralized societies, including housing and jobs and so on, is that directly attached to a fractal that you're building?
Well, I'm looking at this so I can implement this within that.
Okay.
So right now we have a service level architecture with services buses and libraries connected with code. And we have to build it for housing. So we've done this, but we're building it for housing. On top of that, I want to add a DAO. And on top of that, I want to add governance. That's the ultimate goal. So that's why I'm testing it out here.
I see that. You know, that, Eric, we're on exactly the same path. You guys ever played Battleship? You just sunk my battleship. I'm planning on doing that in Costa Rica.
So the goal of turning the latest research into products, services, and organizations that make the world a better place, that's I Value Global. And one of those organizations for housing that we've created is called Innovative Sustainable Living. So it's Innovative Sustainable Living.
Okay, fantastic. Well, if you're sharing that information of what you're doing, I'm interested in learning about all of that, because I'm basically just kind of doing my own ongoing research on how to do that in a number of fronts, possibly in my little town here, by gathering the merchants and creating a merchant fractal where we're trading locally products and services, and also a housing development where we buy a piece of land and people buy a lot, and all the lots in the development constitute a fractal, and they have a common piece of land which has a pool, a restaurant, and a giant, we call it a rancho here in Costa Rica, a beautiful place where it's like a common space, and that common restaurant has its own micro farm or shipping container style garden. And so it's like a self-sustained community, all within one single development. That's a dream. It's just a dream right now. It's just thoughts. You know, I'm just collecting all the information, trying to understand it. But before I pass this world, it would be a wonderful thing to create such a thing where you could reduce the amount of labor that a family or a person would have to exert to exist in this world. I think that's an artifact of a society that's been built by people who are now trying to take it over. And they've been controlling the globe for a long time, and they're now trying to take total control of the globe. But I say we can go in the opposite direction, and this artificial work week where we're all struggling, people are struggling across the world just to survive, is a complete fantasy. It's completely unnecessary. If we
agree. We read very foundational books from Eric Fromm and all that, talking about, you know, how you change, but we also realize you got to actually work to roll stuff out. So we go for the bigger long change. Roll out. I've got to go now and book for the rest of the day. But check out the link I just put in the chat. It's got some interesting foundational ideas for you.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you. All right, guys, me too. I guess you've been wanting to wrap this thing up for quite a while. Thanks for letting us talk this out. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for all the great conversation and amazing initiatives. I could talk a lot about all the cool stuff you shared, but it was fascinating. I really enjoyed it. So thank you so much, Perry and Eric and Noam and Rosemary and Joe, for sharing all the ideas. That website, Eric, I'm going to check that out. I don't know if that's public, but I'd be happy to share it out loud if people want to hear it, if it is public. And then, yeah, I'm looking forward to learning more about this. I learned a lot about Eric's initiatives and Perry's. Looking forward to the housing and land fractal and the merchant fractal and the slab cities and innovative sustainable living and all these great things. It's awesome to see how aligned we are, or just all the cool things that people are doing to help communities thrive. And I'm very much looking forward to collaborating with you all on all of these things. And there's a lot of fun listening. And I think that the stuff that we're doing here too with Eden Fractal, like it can help a lot with this. And also the stuff we talked about with retroactive public goods funding and stuff like that. I think that can help change mindsets and create many benefits for all. But yeah, I don't want to speak for too long because I know this is actually one of our longest meetings yet. We've been on here for three and a half hours now. So I imagine, yeah. And Ferry and Eric said they had to go. I had to get going soon too. I also want to give a shout out to Jorge too. He said he had to go a little while ago, but he said absolute thanks to everyone here. And he also said that he's all in for academic research for next season. But he's happy to help, and told me let me know if he could be any help for the existing grant with the optimism stuff. And he said wonderful work. So big shout out to Jorge and all the great work he's doing, and also to Das and everybody else who joined and everybody else who's been helping so much. So yeah, thanks. Also, thanks for listening and sharing all the thoughts about the optimism stuff, and happy to collaborate with that in the future. Thanks for the heart, Joe. And yeah, feel free to let me know if there's anything I could do to help, and encourage you all to look at the articles and the videos and the websites and stuff that I shared in the Notion Topics database and the Telegram. And I'll share more when I can about that. Thanks to the heart, Rosemary, too. Maybe I'll throw out a heart too, just throwing out a heart for everybody out there. But yeah, really appreciate it, and looking forward to collaborating more in the coming days and weeks, and happy to help with all the initiatives, and very much looking forward to learning more and collaborating to help y'all with these amazing projects and stuff. Oh, and now Eric's got some cool background too, the ISL service bus. Very interesting. All right. Well, I'd be happy to hear more of that if you want to share. If anyone want to share any last words about anything they shared there, or any last words to close it up, but also happy to wrap it up now too. Perry's thrown out the confetti cannon. Great to see. So yeah, thanks everybody so much, and thanks everybody for watching too and listening. Hope you all enjoyed. I thought it was amazing, and very much looking forward to all the things we'll do in the future. Anybody else have any last thoughts you want to share before we wrap it up?
I just think it was amazing that you raised your hand to close the meeting.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to interrupt. I was very happy listening, but I figured people wanted to go pretty soon, so I just kind of subtly raised it, so that we could start to wrap it up when people were ready. But I'm glad that we had, I'm glad that we were, that we had that long, unexpected, amazing conversation with many things, and was happy to just let it keep going while my hand was slightly, subtly raised, and offering to close up whenever you guys are all ready, whenever you all are ready. Anybody? Thanks, Perry. Any last thoughts, Perry or Eric or Rosemary or Joe?
No, that's it.
Okay,
It
cool.
was, I think it's one of the best meetings I listened to and I participated. Thank you.
We have a lot of very interesting people.
Yes.
Yeah, very interesting people in this group. So I'm
That's
happy.
for sure.
I'm happy to know. I'm happy to know this group very much.
Me too.
I agree completely. Very happy. And very interesting people and heroes, if I may say so. I think people who are doing amazing work for all. So thank you so much, everyone. And I agree, this has been one of our best and most amazing and interesting and fascinating meetings. If Eric or especially Joe, you want to share any last thoughts before we wrap it up, or anything else? Maybe last week we didn't really do hats. I put on a hat, nobody else put on a hat, but it was okay. If you all want to put on hats, we could, or we could wrap it up. We don't always have to do hats. We could say go Eden Fractal or anything else. Anybody have any suggestions for how to wrap it up, or any last thoughts?
So we do this slowly and then this.
Slowly raise the hand and this. All right, I'm down with that. And we could throw the peace signs too. Sound good?
Sounds good to me. Wrap her up.
Okay. Oh, and Joe's camera turned on. Great to see you, Joe. Fugitive sound, looking cool with the Center for Governance in the background. Oh, nice. Very cool.
The Miss Universe. The Miss Universe.
Yes. There we go. All right. Joe's getting into it. Very cool. All right. Well, thanks everybody so much. I guess we could do 3, 2, 1, go Eden Fractal. I don't know. Feel free to go ahead if you want. I'll go 3, 2, 1, go Eden Fractal.
Go Eden Fractal, guys.
Go Eden Fractal. Thank you so much, everybody.